You said that you have been like trying to like focus in your conversational skills.
Oh yeah.
What kind of spurred that, I guess?
Uh, I guess I'm just like really scatterbrained, and I noticed sometimes, I have all these ideas, but they're just like jumbled around in there, and I jump around a bunch. But it was probably the second podcast we did where I was just like half finishing a thing and then jumping into another thing, and I don't know. I'm pretty sure I'm somewhere on the ADD spectrum, but I'm not sure how much of that is like I'm born with, or how much of that is just like, technology induced with so many things going on in your life, and like growing up watching television and then growing up with the internet where there's just like constant stimulus at all times.
Yeah, no. That's one of the benefits that I found of doing the podcast and having to like edit it and listen to myself.
Sure.
Is that I kind of get a sense of how I like talk and converse and what I like about it and what I don't like about it and stuff. And I'm very similar. Is like I'll go off on something, but like my words almost get ahead of where my brain is.
Yes, exactly. That's what it is. And like I'll be telling a story and I'll like jump like huge section to like connect a dot.
Yeah.
So then it's like, what the fuck happened from here to here?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just like sometimes I'll be going off on something and then I'll just leave it and then I'll just switch gears entirely.
Absolutely.
Because it's like actually what I was saying there wasn't going to make any sense. Yeah. So let me
without the context of the other things.
Yeah.
Do you go back and listen to your podcasts a lot?
Well, I listen to every single one I record because I have to edit it.
Yeah, okay.
So every single podcast I have recorded, I have listened to.
Because I feel like the best part of that is, well, recognizing things that you wouldn't normally recognize, because you have to actually like dial back and then listen to yourself like unhindered by your own thoughts, and then you'd be like, shit.
Yeah. It's kind of a trip, the amount, because you catch things that you don't even realize that you're doing.
Absolutely.
Like I say like a lot, especially when I get really excited and I'm off on a tangent or something, and it's something that I had to like notice and be like, okay, you gotta dial that back.
Totally. I noticed other people saying it, and then I noticed I say it around other people who say it more. If someone says like a lot, and then you start talking to them, and then you start saying like a lot. But language is interesting because you definitely pick up things people say, or the way people say things, or like people's laughs. Like, I don't know, we all just like feed off each other's.
Yeah, we're always like kind of trying to imitate each other, it seems.
Yeah, but it's subconscious. Like you don't realize you're doing it, right?
Yeah.
Like, you pick up on their views. Sometimes you pick up on just the way they say things. Like, there was one of, this guy always used to say yarp. And then I started saying yarp. And then I'm like, fuck, what the fuck am I doing saying yarp?
Yeah.
That's not my thing. That's his thing. Like, shit.
Well, it's like, I've heard it on a podcast somewhere. I'm sure it was Joe Rogan or Sam Harris or something like that. One of the many podcasts I listen to. But our personalities, basically what they were stating is our personalities is just like an amalgamation of the 5 people that we're closest to.
Yeah.
Or that we spend the most time with. Not even that we're closest to.
That you spend the most time with.
Yeah. So you start picking up on their mannerisms and stuff.
Totally.
And it's,
That's why, like, I don't know, if you're like in a toxic work culture, that has an effect on you. You spend most of your time at work, unfortunately. It can be taxing, but.
Well, even that's why it, even if you have, especially as we're getting older, you kind of pay attention to who you are spending your time with, because you have less of it to spend with people.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you're a little bit more selective in that way, but I mean, just that's, I don't think people realize how important that is. The people that are constantly in your life, and like you feed off them, they feed off you. And if they're a negative person, then it's just going to like, kind of disrupt your life a little bit.
It's true, actually. For a while, I noticed myself like in my earlier 20s and even as a teenager a bit probably too, is like I kind of liked collecting just like weird people. Like I draw into weird people because I'm like, oh, like I kind of understand you're weird, like a bit of a misfit, so like we can be friends. But after a while there, is like I was just hanging out with a lot of weird people, and I could feel, and sometimes negative people, and then you can like feel that like wearing on you. And it wasn't until pretty recently I realized that maybe that was a large contributing factor to my mental state a while ago. But I don't know.
Well, yeah, it is kind of weird too, because like when we met, we were in our early 20s, like late teens maybe.
Yeah.
I think it was early 20s.
I think like 20, 21,
yeah,
like latest.
But like we're almost 30 now. And
yeah,
so
true.
like 10 years
time.
has gone by. So like we've kind of, and that's it goes with like a lot of our friend group too. But like we've kind of seen each other go from these like irresponsible little punk like kind of kids to like adults.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
people are getting their lives together. Like,
yeah.
Serious relationships, getting married, like owning a real car.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super cool. Well, and that's another thing too, is like I had so much anxiety the last couple of years coming up to, 30. And I know like a lot of that was just not being comfortable with where I was at and not knowing where I was going and if what I was doing was going to work out. And I mean, I got lucky. I got a job like right out of school and stuff like that, but there's no certainty there at all. And where was I going with that? I don't know. I feel pretty good now. Yeah, so going into the 30s, I had so much anxiety going into 30s, and now I feel like, a lot of people say that are in their 30s that their 30s end up being the best time of their life. And I can see it, honestly, because you have a direction, you have usually you're more stable anyways. You've kind of, your 20s are like for being stupid and making dumb decisions and, just doing dumb shit and figuring your stuff out. And maybe we romanticize that in some way, that just like being young and free and able to do anything you want. But it's also chaotic. It's stressful. You make a lot of stupid choices. You do stupid things. You say stupid things. Put yourself in stupid situations. But that's like what your 20s is for, is like getting all that shit out of the way, so that when you're 30, you're like, you know what your limits are, you know what you like, what you don't like you know how you want to spend your time, and who you want to spend your time with, like you were saying.
Yeah, limits is a big thing. Like, I know exactly how many like beers I need to drink or how much weed I need to smoke to get to like a level where I'm like, I just want to maintain this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
But and it's, I think the problem is that when you're in your 20s, it kind of feels like be all end all, It doesn't feel like you're supposed to be making these mistakes and stuff like that. And that's true. Where kind of a lot of like, at least for me too, me specifically at least, that's where a lot of the anxiety did come from.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And, but once you do figure your stuff out, and like, I don't know, every year for the past couple years, it's just been getting, better and better. Like, obviously there's, as any year, it has its ups and downs. There's really terrible points and there's really good points, but overall, like the overall arc of my life, if it was on a graph, it would probably be a steady
upward trajectory.
A steady upward trajectory,
which is good. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Like, even though I think another way we got really lucky in our friend group is that we're all like, obviously we'd done some stupid things, but we've all been pretty. A lot safer, I'd say, with some of our choices than a lot of other people. And I don't know, like we're always, I mean, like drugs is the easiest go-to here, where like, I don't know, some people go to festivals and they'll just do like any cocktail of anything and they get super fucked up and they end up in a hospital, or even if it's, not drugs, it's just alcohol, right? It's a drug, whatever. Just getting super fucked up and making stupid choices and and I feel like we kind of minimized that within our like group.
Yeah.
I hear people say sometimes some of the shit they got into, and I'm like, man, like, I don't know. We've always been pretty good. Like, I've been pretty lucky. I tell people that a lot, actually. I've been pretty lucky to like grow up with like a good friend group like you guys,
Yeah, we were lucky. We found, and like honestly, we didn't become really good friends until our 20s. We all met in our 20s, or most of us at least. Like, the only friend that I really have left from high school is Brendan.
Yeah.
And he's I started hanging out with him in grade 12 of high school. So like it was even, all my other friends throughout high school, I just completely ditched pretty much. Tom I knew in high school, but I hung out with his brother and stuff like that.
Right.
And then that's just kind of weird how that ended up being a thing. And then Tom introduced us to all you guys. True, and then it was just like, But yeah, we did get lucky because we all were similar people. We were all like-minded people, and we all kind of were aimless in the same way. You know what I mean?
It's true, yeah.
So we kind of like supported each other in that aimlessness.
It's kind of like, aimless, but also like nerdy hippies.
Yeah, exactly.
it just fit. It was nice to find that fit. Like, yo, you guys are Centennial us.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And like we were all kind of into the same music and it was just kind of nice to have that, like, because a lot of people go through that shit like alone, you know what I mean? And that's why it can be really hard, I think, is if you don't have anybody, then that's like obviously it would be what we went through, but worse, you know. So
for those people that like only have party friends, and then obviously they're not like your real friends. They're not gonna be there for you in hard times and stuff like that. But
I don't know. Yeah, because like I hear a lot of people, or I used to hear a lot of people talk about how they like didn't have like a friend group like I had, I have so many people that I could, if shit really went down, I could call up and I know that they would probably be there,
Absolutely.
And that's just a good feeling to have.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Even if it's not something that you consciously think of every day, it's like kind of in the back of your mind, and that, it's a little comforting and stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like, I don't know, anytime we all get together, it's always just a good time. And we just laugh our asses off.
Yeah. Actually, for other people, when they get together with us, because we don't see each other that often anymore, but like I've heard that like we can be kind of hard to because we just start going off on shit,
and then it's like, okay, it's all these inside jokes, and you're just kind of sitting there like, I get that. I've decided that when that does happen and we all get together and there are new people to try and but that's weird for me to do. Like I have to consciously think to do that. Like as an introvert, it's not like, I don't know, but
I know what you mean, because we just, and I've actually started to notice it too when we do get together, that we could just go off.
It's so easy to. There's just so much to go off of,
Jokes from like 3 years ago that are still hilarious.
Absolutely.
From D&D.
Jokes from 10 years ago that are still hilarious.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, Tom's dubstep friends. Like,
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah, it's crazy to think what the next 10 years will be like,
Oh, yeah.
But
because we'll all be entering our 30s.
We'll be going through it by the end of 10 years. We'll be entering our 40s, right? Like, shit. Who's still going to be in Calgary, Like,
yeah, it's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
It's actually surprising that we've all lasted this long in Calgary. So
It's true. I mean, what's the thing, too? Like, in Canada, like, even though Alberta's economy is, like, not doing the greatest, it's still probably one of the best most affordable places to live in the country. Like, your other viable options really are Vancouver and Toronto. But it's hell expensive to live in those cities. So I get it, I meet a lot of people all the time that like just came here recently, or people are always just coming here because this is like, it's relatively affordable, and like the average median wage is still higher in Alberta than it is in any other province. Yeah. So, I don't know, I get it, right? Like, unless you're moving away for work, like what reason is there,
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah.
I've lived a few places in Canada, and like honestly, Calgary is the best place that I have lived in. And
for sure.
Just also, the proximity to the mountains and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, snowboarding's a big thing for you, right? Yeah. So that's pretty much like, there's nowhere else really you could go.
Unless I like move to BC or something.
Small town.
Vancouver,
I should probably get some good.
Yeah,
proximity.
If you travel in a bit, like Whistler's there, and it's like world renowned and stuff, and it's like an hour and a half away, which is like about the drive to the mountains here. So, but the thing with Calgary is like if you are willing to drive 2 hours in like any direction, basically, you're gonna hit a sick mountain.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah,
so
it's cool.
like,
I actually really enjoy at my work. Like, I have where my cubicle is. I thought I would absolutely like hate the cubicle life, but I think just the company I work for is super cool, so that makes it better. But yeah, my window faces the mountains.
Okay.
So sometimes I just kind of stand there, sip my morning coffee, and like stare off at them. Or if I like have a problem that like I'm mulling over in my brain and I need to like step away from my desk for a minute, I literally just have to turn around and boom, they're right there.
Nice.
Yeah, it's cool. It's just like a cool thing to have, just like right there, you know.
Definitely. I can see the mountains from one of the windows at work in the warehouse. So sometimes I just walk over there and I just stare at the mountains and I'm like, fuck yeah. Like,
fuck yeah. Exactly, yeah. Like, they're over there. Yeah. I can see them. Sweet.
I can see them. That's sweet.
Yeah.
And I see them every day on my drive home, you know, and like, you know, certain times of years you see like the sun setting and the mountains are there and it's like, this is fucking beautiful.
Yeah, there was a time when I was living up north in Edgemont and I was driving down south to work. So I took, what's that, Stony Trail all the way?
Yeah.
Which was a pain, like, part of it was a pain in the ass because it was like, okay, I have to leave like a little over an hour early to get there. But because I'm waking up early, I was waking up like with the sunrise during like a certain time. And sometimes they're just absolutely magnificent. And like, how often you just miss that on a daily basis because either it's dark when you're waking up in wintertime or like it's well beyond, you know, sunlight.
Yeah.
And I always found that sunrises were like more like beautiful than sunsets, but like you always see sunsets, you know?
Yeah. Sunrise, like one thing I definitely noticed is when I was traveling in Costa Rica, like the sunsets were insane, but the sunrises were kind of
weird.
meh.
Maybe it's like a hemisphere thing.
Yeah, and then coming in Canada, like I've seen some of the best sunrises I've ever seen in my life just driving to fucking work. Like in the morning, the skies are like reds and oranges and pinks, and you're like, this is fucking insane.
That's crazy. I wonder if, like the hemisphere.
It might be,
has like an effect.
Yeah.
Because I never would have thought of that.
Yeah. Because sunsets here are kind of like, you know.
Sometimes they're really good.
Sometimes,
it's like most of the time it's like, all right, whatever.
You don't get those colors like you do for the sunrises.
Yeah,
though.
that's why, like, and why, you know?
Yeah, and then like in Costa Rica, it was like you got all the fucking
opposite,
colors, and
it's got to be a
hemisphere thing, possibly. Yeah. If anybody out there knows, let us know because we.
Sure.
We do not
exactly.
know.
Science. Jamie, look that up.
Yeah.
We need a Jamie.
Yeah, I can't afford a Jamie. So.
That's fair.
I am the Jamie. I am the the everything. So.
What do you mean? I'm a Patreon. I'm a supporter.
Yeah.
I'm a stakeholder.
You're fun.
Keep me happy. You can't do it on the $1 a month I give you.
Hey, I'm getting it done. So.
Yeah.
I've always, you know. This is something that I've always wanted to, you know, just give away for free. So it's really cool that people are willing, because like I don't, you know, really kind of I put a thing at the beginning of every episode, but it's mostly just to remind people that it's there. But I'm not like hounding people for money, and like I have considered doing like advertising things or whatever, or
I don't
like
think it'd be a bad idea, especially for the music one, because I feel like you got pretty good reach on that.
Yeah, it's mostly local though, you know what I mean? Like it's this is Your Brain On podcast has more subscribers than the other one. Yeah, by actually almost double.
Okay, cool.
Because I think this one is more relatable to a wider audience.
Yeah, that's valid actually. Yeah. Really, if you're like friends with a band or whatever, you want to listen to their band. I guess that's probably valid.
Yeah, whereas Groove Talk is mostly just, you know, mostly Calgary musicians.
Yeah.
And actually it's starting to kind of spread into Western Canada. I've actually gotten some like requests from bands outside of the city who want to come on the podcast.
That's super cool.
Yeah,
they reach out to you even.
Yeah,
too.
they're reaching out to me, which is kind of neat.
Well, I think it's good. You got some like pretty big names, like what's that dude from the radio show from X89?
Matt Berry.
Yeah, him.
Yeah.
And then the guy from CJSW. Yeah, so you got some like, you know, like notable names. You know, names that people would recognize. So
yeah,
that's cool.
And it's fun too. Like I don't know, early on in the podcasting career, it was so weird emailing people at first and asking people to be on the podcast, and then you quickly realize that the worst thing that they're gonna say is no, and most likely they're just not gonna respond to your email.
For
and
sure.
like,
Yeah,
whatever, So
absolutely.
Yeah.
One thing I have to say too is that your intros have gotten a lot more solid. I think you got like a good flow going, and this is interesting. Like, 'cause I hadn't actually tuned in for a while, admittedly, but it's almost like, when you like see someone's kid that you hadn't seen in like a year, and suddenly they're like way bigger, but like as the parent of that kid, you're like, I've seen it every day, so it's like whatever. So, it felt like that. Like, oh damn, you're so big now, Jesus.
Yeah, you just get comfortable with it, right? Like,
oh, for sure.
It's a skill like anything else,
repetition.
Repetition, and also just being comfortable with just kind of freeballing it, and if you make mistakes, I always try and do the intros in one go. If I ever have to like stop it and then I'll just be like, fuck it, I'm just gonna redo the whole thing, because I feel like it feels more flowy that way. And like and also I actually toyed with the idea of just pre-recording an intro, but I listened to it like twice, and I did it for 2 times. I'm like, I can't stand this, so I don't think the listeners could stand it. So.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
I think it's better when you freeball, and it's like, because if it's the same every time, you're like, okay, skip. Like, whatever. Yeah,
exactly. So I try and keep it interesting, and again, it's just good practice for me,
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Yeah,
it's good.
So
yeah,
one thing I would recommend to anybody is just like find something that you really enjoy doing and like take it seriously, like whatever it may be.
Into it, yeah. I'm trying to like decide where I want to put my spare time into things more productive. I've been reading more. It's nice now that I'm a little bit more stable with my job. I'm less panicky about whether or not they're gonna discover I'm a fraud and fire me. The imposter syndrome is so real. And so I'm like, I'm comfortable with what I'm doing. I can finally kind of engage in the intellectual pursuits that I used to when I had a shit job that required no brain. And it feels so nice to like be able to read things that interest me, and just have thoughts away from just like code. 2 years of schooling, and then starting a new job, and like learning entirely new like programming languages, and in a brand new environment that's completely foreign to me. It took a lot to kind of get that, and I just finally started like reading philosophy and like I don't know, watching history documentaries, and just the kind of things that I used to just like drive me before that. I knew it bothered me, but like I didn't realize to the extent until I finally got back into it, and I just felt so much more like complete. I don't know. Yeah,
man, I totally get it, because like if I wasn't able to listen to like podcasts at my work, I would go insane. Like, it's one of the main reasons why I like my job.
Absolutely, yeah.
Is because my mental time is always my own.
For sure, yeah.
Like it's an easy enough job where like I am there, like physically, and I'm doing the work physically, but mentally I can like choose where I spend my time.
Totally.
So But I totally get that, because like it's something that I've always kind of been. More recently, I've been trying to be more cognizant of how I'm spending my downtime. Instead of like, everybody gets in the trap every once in a while. You're just scrolling endlessly through social media or whatever it is. But so I try and catch myself when I'm doing that. I'm like, no, go read a book or something.
That's the biggest thing for me. Like I take social media cleanses sometimes where I just delete Facebook and Instagram, and I find it's helpful, but it never like, the second I get them back, I'm on them again, like it's not, but it's nice to just kind of refresh and remind yourself to back away from. But for me, the biggest thing was just gaming, and just like playing games and filling time, which I mean, like a lot of people, I don't watch a lot of TV. I do a little bit more now that like I've dialed back from gaming a little bit, but still like I'm trying to find other things as well. But just the sheer amount of time that I could be putting at least a portion of that time into other things. I started jamming with one of my coworkers actually, so I've been playing bass again, which has been really good. I thought it would be rough to get back into, but it's almost like riding a bike. I'm kind of picking up at relatively the same skill level as I was, and so yeah, it's been good to kind of like have real hobbies again.
Yeah, no, dude, I totally get
that.
Yeah. There was like a time in my life where I was kind of going through like a little bit more of like a down slope. It was a little bit more depressed and stuff, and like it would just be like times when I would like almost be aimless. I'd be like wandering around the house like looking for something to do, but like so just kind of like instilling those like habits of like when you are bored you do this or whatever totally. has been really beneficial. And yeah, I was gonna say something about there's also some times where like you do just want to do nothing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's good to recognize those times because everybody does need those downtimes too. Sure. You don't want to like get burnt out or overload yourself or anything like that, because that does happen too. So
yeah, well, that's kind of the whole point of like meditation, or why it's like there's like science that backs how good it is for you, though. Even if you're not meditating per se, but you're just taking some time to just think. Because it's amazing how you can go, and it amazes me sometimes how some people go their whole lives without like self-reflecting at all, and they're just like unapologetically themselves, which is admirable. But then you can't fathom why someone might not like something that you did, or you can't see things from other people's perspectives or whatever. And I can never fathom doing that, or how people could be like that. Because I've always just been so like in my head, like, what does this person think? What am I doing? Like, am I making myself look like an idiot? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a balance between those two things, but yeah.
No, I'm because I'm the same way. Like I've always been very introspective and somewhat introverted as well. Actually, not somewhat introverted, but
pretty introverted,
but yeah, so it's kind of weird when people, just like run through life, and it's like, are you even thinking about what you're doing? Are you even thinking about your actions and how you're affecting people?
Right.
And sometimes the answer might be yes, and sometimes the answer might be no. But it's just, it kind of goes to the whole thing about like, how interesting would it be if you could just spend like 30 seconds inside somebody's head and experience the world the way they do,
Sure, yeah.
It's just,
that'd be super crazy, honestly.
Even 10 seconds, actually. Just like a glimpse into somebody else's life.
I can't imagine that. I think it would be such a shock. I mean, like a lot of people kind of have the same mental issues, A lot of people struggle with anxiety or overthinking, so maybe it wouldn't be as weird as you think. But I don't know. I have an interesting thought on Buddha, actually, in Buddhism. First of all, I went to a Buddhist temple, and it was incredibly disappointing. I probably didn't go to the right Buddhist temple, to be fair, but it was basically like a Catholic church with a Buddhist skin on it. I walked in there, and it was meditation time first. We did like a 10-minute meditation, and then after that, we like pull out the booklet and then open, and there's some like verses. It reads the verses, and then there's some songs. You sing the songs, and it was very, very churchy.
Yeah.
And I feel like the point of that was probably people who were used to church, but maybe they didn't want Christianity, and so here's a Buddhist option. So it probably just wasn't the right temple to go to. But anyways, do you know like the origin story of Buddha? There's like the myth of when he was born, and the priest said that he was either destined to be a great prophet or a great ruler, and then his father kind of sheltered him from any sort of outside influence that might make him leave or whatever. So he like hid all the poor people and the sick people, and then they say that eventually, like in his 30s or whatever, he saw like a sick man and someone dying or dead in the street, and then he like kind of freaked out and left to kind of explore. But I think what they brush over, and what seems pretty, when I looked at it, when I like actually, like, I watched a documentary on Buddha or whatever, and they like go through it, but it surprises me that no one ever thought that maybe he was escaping something, you know, like he left a wife and kids.
Yeah.
He left like you know, like a rich and wealthy life, but like I don't know, he went on this like huge journey to find enlightenment, but it just like, I don't, to me it just seemed very like escapist. Like he wasn't happy with his life. Maybe it was super dry. Maybe like he wasn't in love with his wife or didn't get along with his wife or whatever, just wasn't happy with what he was doing, and he just like, obviously the things that came out of Buddhism were incredible, and they stand the test of time, truly. If any religion, anything close to religion like has, it's Buddhism. But I just think the origin of Buddha, and how it's kind of romanticized, I just don't feel like it was quite so cut and dry, you know?
Yeah, no, for sure.
But one thing about that temple that I really didn't like is he says something about being perfect like the Buddha, and I was like, I think you're totally missing the point here.
The point.
Yeah, like I don't think he was perfect by any means.
And I don't think he ever preached that he was perfect.
Yeah,
you know?
and the point isn't to be perfect like the Buddha. It's supposed to be, you know, perfect like you.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like the point isn't even to find enlightenment. You know what I mean? Because enlightenment is impossible.
Yeah. Yeah.
We are humans. Nobody is going to be an enlightened being with all of our human baggage, you know? Like,
Yeah.
and it's not the point to find enlightenment. It's to strive for enlightenment,
Sure,
you know?
yeah.
And it's the striving that, like, that's where all the lessons are learned. And, like, the Buddhism was, like, it came to me kind of at a key moment in my 20s. It was when I was kind of aimless and, like, kind of, like, pondering the points of life.
Right.
And there was also a lot of psychedelic drug use going on at the time. And, like...
Yeah.
But I
this fits.
Yeah, it like came to me at the perfect time, and just like one of the things that still really sticks with me, and it's like one of the most simple things that they teach in Buddhism is that life is suffering, you know, and for some reason that really resonated with me at the time, and it's still something being like, oh yeah, just life is hard, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's our choice to make it, you know, harder, or to
Right.
like wallow in that suffering.
Yeah,
We don't
how
have
you respond to it,
how you
right?
respond to it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like the only things that we can control is how we react to things.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can't control the environment. We can't control other people. We can only control our reactions to things.
Absolutely. One thing I feel like I've been doing really good with lately, the last couple weeks, is another part of Buddhist philosophy of not having expectations for things. 'Cause expectations lead to suffering. I think that maybe it's the second noble truth even. Yeah, it's just, honestly, things are just so much better when you have no expectations of how they're supposed to turn out.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess a prime example of this for me is like going on dating apps and like talking to people, and I've never had an easier time. You know, it's just because like I don't want to date. I have no expectations. I just like, I'll talk, we have a few laughs, okay, cool, maybe actually let's hang out and go for coffee, like, and even in the date, like my expectation isn't I want anything out of this. I just literally I enjoy just kind of connecting with people that I don't know. I kind of just found that like enjoyment, and that's all I really saw, was just to sit down and have a conversation with a stranger, and they all went extremely well. One of those dates lasted 9 hours.
Oh shit.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. It was absurd. But just cool that like that. It just really taught me that like it's so much better to go into situations and not expect something out of it, not expect to have a return. And honestly, because it seems so simple. Another example is going to see a movie. If you expect this movie to be good and it is shitty, you're going to be incredibly disappointed.
Yeah.
But if you don't expect it to be very good, I saw Thor. It was quite a long time ago. When I saw Thor in theaters, I expected it to be pretty bad. It looked really dumb to me, but I didn't know any of the like comic lore of Thor. I saw like Thor as a comic book character, and I think this is fucking stupid. I would have seen the movie. It was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
So I left the movie being like, oh, cool, you know. Like, and I think that applies to anything you're doing in life. Not that you should expect everything to be shitty.
No.
You shouldn't. but just
definitely
it's literally just not having an expectation.
Yeah.
But it's so hard to actually do because, I mean, you want things. You can't. It's hard to not want things. But I mean, it depends on the situation, really. I don't think I could do it in literally any context, although I would like to get to that point because it's so freeing. It's such a good feeling.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And an area in my life where I found that really beneficial is just having no expectations on the way that people are going to act towards you, or like some people have expectations. It's like this person should act this way in this situation, and then that's just going to cause
because then they don't, and you're like, why the fuck didn't you act the way I thought you were going to act?
It's just going to cause a whole bunch of drama and just unnecessary. And just one of the things that I've really tried and practiced the no expectations is just the way that people act.
Oh, for sure.
Then you're always pleasantly surprised when somebody does do something for you or whatever. Like it just takes out like all this stress of thinking about how other people should be acting, and it's freeing. Exactly what you said. It's freeing. It's liberating. Yeah, it's liberating. Like it's actually all the kind of noble truths, I guess, of Buddhism. Once you kind of comprehend them and apply them to your life, they're freeing.
Which is the point. Yeah, right. Yeah. To free up the mental baggage that we put on ourselves.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's weird because I wouldn't even like if somebody was like, so you're a Buddhist then? I'd be like, no.
Yeah, exactly.
But like one of the things in Buddhism again is like take what you need from Buddhism and discard the rest if it doesn't apply to your life.
Which is funny because a lot of places that are Buddhist or practice Buddhism where it's become like a religion, they kind of like disregard that aspect of it. But, I'm reading Meditations of Marcus Aurelius right now. Okay. Which is really cool. Do you know Marcus Aurelius? He was a Roman emperor.
Yeah.
He's also a Stoic.
Stoicism.
But what's so cool about Meditations is it was never intended to like be a book. It's really just notes to himself.
Yeah, it was like it was his personal thoughts.
And it just to keep himself grounded and humble and like in check, And that's just like the very premise of that. The fact that because as human beings, we let power go to our heads. There's a reason why governments or leadership is always corrupt at some point, But it's very admirable, I think, to see a Roman empire, Rome in its height, have a leader that was consciously, staying grounded, keeping himself in check, Super, super cool.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I feel like Stoicism is almost like the Western form of Buddhism.
Western Zen.
Yeah. But it's weird to say that Rome is West, like even though I guess
it's still like Western culture, Greece too.
Western culture, but it's like the Western form of Buddhism almost. So it's kind of neat to see that those kind of
similar philosophies kind of arrive
in different ways. Exactly. Yeah. Based on culture and just stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said for, because when you see these like pockets of deep philosophy kind of show up throughout history, they're almost always from cultures that are at the height, at the peak.
Yeah.
So they have a lot kind of going for them. A lot of their needs are met. So people have, what I think it has something to be said about is if you have time to dedicate to thinking and exploring beyond just making ends meet, putting a roof over your head, food on the table. You have time to kind of just like sit back and think about what more there is.
Yeah, and I also think that it comes from civilizations that had everything, yet they still might not have been happy.
Right.
So then you have to kind of go into those metaphysical things and been like, so what is the point to it all?
Sure, exactly.
But like an example that I use at least is that yes, we should all care about the environment, but it's really hard to care about the environment when you're barely scraping by.
Oh, for sure.
It's hard to like care about recycling and composting. If your mental health isn't in order, then it's hard to care about anything other than just getting by.
Well, I had this thought about poachers, right? Like the guy in Africa shooting an elephant to sell the tusk. is not someone who can sit at their computer and yell at people on Facebook, you know, like he's someone who's literally he's just struggling to get by to feed his family, you know, and he can get a large sum of money for this elephant tusk. He doesn't care, you know, but meet all that person's needs, take care of have his you know family's taken care of. He can like live a good life, and he's not going to go elephant poaching, you know. Often the root of a lot of like societal problems lie in I guess people not having their needs met,
or
right?
just people suffering, like even if it is just mentally suffering, you know, like
absolutely. But you can alleviate a lot of that by just meeting physical needs also, you know?
Definitely, for sure. And it kind of goes back to like what the Maslow's hierarchy of needs or whatever, like
exactly,
and you know, you meet one need, then you can move on to the next one, and then you know, you got both those, and
top of the pyramid, self-actualization. I think,
so like it's perfect example of that.
Absolutely.
So
I discovered a new, well, it's actually not a new philosophy at all, but it's called Absurdism. Have you heard of Absurdism?
It sounds familiar, but I don't know if I know
it's a derivative of existentialism.
Okay.
So it's basically the acknowledgement that it comes from Kierkegaard, I don't know the first name, and then this other guy, Albert Camus. But yeah, so the idea is that life is absurd, and there isn't, like, it doesn't make sense. There's no meaning to it, per se, which is very, you know, nihilist, existentialist, from the same vein of philosophy. But Absurdism claims there's like 3 kind of responses to this, to the absurd. Is escapism, so suicide, drugs, you know, partying, whatever, just like not thinking about it. Spirituality, religion, finding some sort of clinging to something beyond the absurd. And then acceptance, which is, I think, what you've talked about here. We've probably talked about is just kind of accepting that maybe there's not a whole lot, and then you kind of do things to define your own meaning. You know, and that's where it's like, because I can see how someone who's struggling with the sense that life is meaningless might think that creating your own meaning is also meaningless because there's no real meaning behind it. However, and this is like, and you might think that's just, you know, saying that it's beautiful is just like a cop-out or whatever. But I think, how do I like articulate this? The beauty, like the beauty in creating the meaning, right? Because it's yours to create. Like, you have the power to create that meaning, and that's what makes it so powerful and makes it drive you. And that doesn't make it less significant. You know. Because at the end of the day, like, it's your consciousness. You're in charge of your time in this meaningless existence, right? So, like, what's the point of wasting it to not have any meaning? You know, like, who the fuck cares if beyond what's in front of you has meaning?
Exactly.
If you can give meaning yourself, like, you have the power. That's the thing. Like, you have that power.
You have the power to shape your own reality, like. And whatever meaning you decide to give to life, that is in itself has value. But like, I can super resonate with that because, like, we have talked about it before on the podcast, but like, ultimately life, and no matter what you do in life, doesn't really have a point. It doesn't have a meaning. But that in itself is freeing to me personally, because that means whatever meaning I want to give to my life is important.
Right.
Because ultimately it doesn't matter.
Well, and here's the thing, is that there are some objective ways to get meaning that have a tangible outcome, at least tangible in that you yourself can feel it, right? Like, when you do something nice for somebody, right? You get a good feeling. Especially or just accomplishing something feels good. Accomplishing something with other people feels good. Like there's lots of ways that you can kind of get some tangible feeling from that, you know. Doing something for yourself that like has positive outcome, you know. I don't know, I think you can find like a pseudo religious experience in a lot of different ways, and I think maybe you don't necessarily realize that all the time, but like when you hear like a song that's just like, and for the song for the first time that just fucking blows your mind.
It's one of my favorite feelings.
I feel like that's like a pseudo religious experience. It's almost like, it's just like, because you know, you feel it, you know, it like something's going on in your body and you're like, holy shit, like where has this been my whole life? You know. Fuck.
And then you go back and listen to said song again maybe a week later and you don't have that same feeling. You know what I mean?
Well, the first time for anything is always,
it's always the best time.
You can never, and you can spend your whole life chasing the first time, but it's never going to be like that. I think that's why drugs, especially like drugs like heroin and that kind of stuff, can be super addictive. Cause,
chasing the dragon.
Well, and like the first time it's probably so fucking amazing, but then it'll just never be like that ever again, and you up the dosage and it's just never
it's never the same. Well, I mean, like that's like gives you know, importance to novelty in your life, you know what I mean? Like doing novel things or trying new things or just having as many new experiences as you possibly can, I think has value.
Absolutely.
Not only will it give you these awesome feelings and being like, especially if you discover something that you really enjoy, but it also, I feel like in each one of those things there's like a learning experience and how you deal with pressure, and you just get to know yourself a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Which in turn helps you navigate this life in a better way. Yeah.
For sure. I think also realizing onto the third tenet of Buddhism, because suddenly we're experts. I don't know if it's the third tenet, but I'm pretty sure it's one of the tenets, is the impermanence. Nothing is permanent. Realizing that nothing will last forever is another, I think, really important thing to learn, because we can get hung up on people or things in our life that we just want to stick around. Even ourselves, we know that Ernest Becker's Denial of Death is all about how we just kind of live our lives like we won't expire, you know? But I think that's another thing that I've been mulling over in my brain that's kind of helped me with things like people come and go from your life, and there's, no matter how long they're there for, like there's still value in that. You could meet somebody and like be friends with them for like a month or two, and like really connect with that person, and like be sad that they're gone, you know, but then also it's like, okay, but you had that, you know, month or two. And I feel like, I don't know, I'm freeballing here now, but like, and I don't know, because I have never really experienced this, but I feel like if you were traveling on your own in a new place for a long time and not staying in one spot for the same time, but obviously you meet people, right? You make random friends for the night, right? I think that's something that like that kind of traveling is very apt to teach.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? You can meet somebody for a short time, appreciate the time you had with them, but like, I don't know, anytime we like made friends from Shambhala or just anything like that, or just random places, it's like at the time, like you really fucking love that person, you know, it's like really cool, you're glad you met, you want to stay friends, you add them on Facebook, and maybe you chat a little bit on Facebook, but like nothing beyond that, you know, it's just like that's just how it is, and you just gotta like accept that that's how it is, and there's a cool person that you met one time, you know, like
exactly. It's like I've met, like I have, you know, traveled on my own a little bit, and I have met a lot of random people staying in hostels and stuff, and it's awesome. I'm glad I met those people, but like I didn't even consider being like, yo, let's be Facebook friends or whatever. And it's like, I met people from Calgary in Vietnam one time. I had a great conversation with them for the afternoon, but then as soon as that was over, it was over. It's a cool thing for sure. And it's the impermanence of life is, again, it's something that I find almost kind of freeing in a way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's something that I consciously, you know, remind myself when I'm having like more of a downtime or something, you know, and just be like,
it's not gonna last.
It's not gonna last.
Yeah.
It's not, and it's helped me a lot with my mental state.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you get into an angry mood and you're just like, okay, this is anger.
Yeah.
Another thing that I've taken from Buddhism, actually, and it might just be meditation in general, but is actually naming the emotions as they pop up.
Right.
So, like, you are fully aware of what you are feeling in that moment. So if you are feeling anger, you're like, this is anger.
Right.
I am angry, or whatever. And they last. You don't get hung up on it anymore,
right.
you know?
You can put a name on it.
Yeah.
And be like, oh, yeah, that's what it is. All right, cool.
Yeah, okay, cool. It's, like, gone now. And it just, I feel like I'm less prone to getting caught up in, like, bouts of random emotional outbursts or whatever.
Right, yeah. For me, it's, like, self-deprecation.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
I'm really apt to, like, destroying myself in my own brain. You know, it just comes so easily.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And I've been able to catch myself on it.
Yeah.
Really, which is good.
Yeah, it's something that I've had to work on as well, as being like, you know, my default was always being like, if you did something wrong, it's like, oh, you fucking suck, man. Blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, okay, wait a second.
Yeah.
Stop being so hard on yourself. Like,
totally.
You just messed up or whatever. It's not... And honestly, a healthy dose of self-deprecation is fine.
Sometimes you got to keep yourself in check. Right?
You got to keep your ego in check sometimes. And I don't mind poking fun at myself sometimes, especially if it's going to just be funny.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It got to a point in my life, at least, where it was just a little bit too much.
Right.
Yeah. And actually, somebody who was really good at helping me point that out and make me realize about that was Josh.
Oh, yeah.
Because anytime you make any sort of, like, self-deprecating joke around him, he's
super
like... Yeah, he's like...
What the fuck,
He's
man?
like, yeah, exactly. He's like, you're a fucking awesome person. You're like, yeah, I know, but it was a joke. So...
Yeah, Josh is a human teddy bear.
Yeah.
Incarnate.
Yeah. Exactly.
I think anyone who knows him will agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. There's one constant in that. The only constant is that there is no constant.
Mm-hmm.
There's no universal truth. There's no universal universe, you know, like even the universe is going to expire at some point in time. Like the star we orbit is going to expire at some point in time.
Mm-hmm.
This laptop is going to expire, you know. Nothing is impermanent. Just wrap that up.
Yeah. Nothing is permanent.
But I sorry, to expand on, I guess, the no constant thing is people get hung up on ideas like it's the sole truth and there's no way around it. And I find a really hard time ever finding a case where one thing is 100% of the truth.
Yeah.
It's not that it isn't 100% true, sure, but there are so many other factors and something else that opposes that thing is also true. You know, the easiest is to see it in politics. Not that I want to dive down the political rabbit hole, but like you see it all the time with I don't know, people harping on Jason Kenney or harping on Justin Trudeau, and they pick out all the things they do wrong and ignore all the things they do right, and both sides are doing it, and that's just an easy observation. But we do this with all sorts of things in our life. You know, it's easy to like take an opinion and just kind of drive it home as 100% true, and I don't know. It's a lot easier to do. It's a lot harder to like think, well, you know, like maybe, I don't know. And then if you're like me, you spend too much time being like, I don't know, I have like no idea what the truth is, or this is true, but also this is I don't know, I'm just gonna fucking, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of makes it hard to have conversations with people sometimes because people will say something like blah, like as like this is a truth, and then you're just like, but
Totally, yeah. You're like, yeah, sure, like I see you that, but also this.
Yeah, it's like it's not that I believe this, but like also I feel like you need to just see this side of me. Like,
or it's also another thing is that I'm not 100% disagreeing with you.
Yeah.
But there's also this side of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes people like they can't fathom that. They're like, no.
Yeah. It's like if you're saying that, you must believe that or whatever. And it's
or like you're saying I'm wrong because there's only right and wrong, and it's just like there's like 50 million shades of
there's
between,
barely ever just right and wrong. Yeah, no. It kind of like I find myself doing that all the time, and it just, you know, there's a time and place to do it, but I mostly now just reserve it for people that I actually cared, like, to talk to,
right.
Not just like random people.
Sure. Or that that you can actually, have that conversation with.
Yeah. But you're right. Like, sometimes even you have to like really make it clear. It's like, I'm not disagreeing with you, or I don't actually feel this way, but there is this side to the argument. Yeah,
for sure.
So
I mean, we've talked a lot about the futility of arguing with people online, but I had a thought earlier today, actually, because it was this I think it was like a MAPS thing, which is the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies. They've been pushing to like legalize psychedelics for study in therapeutic purposes, but they posted a thing 6 years ago on the Joe Rogan podcast, Rick Doblin, and then in the comments someone posted like, oh, Joe Rogan's a white ring panderer, blah blah blah, like fuck him. And then a lot of people like were like, no, shut the fuck up, like obviously you don't actually like know anything about him, because I don't know. But the point is, I feel like a lot of us in this like polarized, again, political sphere, because it's the easiest one to point out, the most obvious one to point out, is you let the crazies on either end dogpile, right? Because you say something and then all of the like crazy left-wing guys will jump in, they'll dogpile and make you feel like shit, right? But no one's doing that to them and their crazy ideas, right? They're only getting validation, and that's increasing the polarization because they're getting validation. They're not getting the counterpoint, right? This guy on this MAPS thing said something absurd, which is that, Joe Rogan's a white ring pandering idiot and should be not listened to, right? You get a bunch of people jumping on and being like, whoa, like actually maybe you should like look at that a little bit more, like I don't know. You get a bunch of people jumping on, then you're like, oh fuck, maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, but that doesn't happen on these polar ends of things, because you're just like, okay, let the crazies be crazy, right? Most of us, 90% of us, are in that middle ground, right? So obviously, it's a waste of your own mental energy to sit there and argue with somebody back and forth. But sometimes I think there is value in the rest of us in the middle standing up to these people in the fringes and letting them know that it's fucking retarded.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, dude, I totally agree. And like the problem is that when it is the fringes or whatever, like nobody's ever changed their mind or their opinion by somebody being like, shut the fuck up, you're wrong.
That's true.
You know what I mean? Yeah. You have to approach it with empathy, you have to have empathy for their position and be like, okay, I see where you're coming from, and I see like maybe why you think this, but like, have you considered this?
Which is really hard to do online, and that's why it's an issue to kind of, because you can completely abolish all sense of empathy when it's just a wall of words, you know?
When you just see text and you're like, I don't even care who fucking said this, like.
That's why, just as like a general rule of thumb, I'm a big fan of emojis, because it adds a lot of emotional context that is missing in language, and a lot of our language is done over text now, that I think it's really important to have emojis and use them appropriately.
I agree.
I might have brought this up before, but it was like 2015 Oxford Word of the Year was the Tears of Joy emoji. Yeah. People were fucking raging about it, but I stand behind that. It's like it's an important part of our language as we, migrate most of our conversations online. Yeah. To have that emotional context that you don't get by staring at someone's face and picking up on their, vocal inflections and.
Yeah, no, it's one of the greatest emojis that have ever come out of the emoji universe.
Eggplant.
Is the shrug.
The shrug's good.
I love the shrug.
Am I putting dicks on everything? No, the shrug's good. The shrug is good. Yeah.
The shrug is my favorite emoji, and it will never be topped by anything. Because there's been so many times before the shrug emoji, where I'd be texting, I'd be like, but like, how can I convey the shrug that I am feeling right now?
Well, have you seen the text-based one where it's like a couple lines put together in like brackets and there's like a face in the middle?
I have, but I never figured out how to construct that one.
I never did either. If I've ever used it, I Googled it and then I copied and pasted it.
So I'm glad that they've made that simple for me.
Yeah,
so
yeah, for sure.
Shrug across the internet.
Yeah, shrug across the internet. I don't know anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but no, I agree. Like emojis are super important.
Mm-hmm.
They convey so much more. Like they were a thing before they were even a thing. You know, we
Yeah.
were doing them with
That's
colons
true.
and brackets. And,
Totally.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. I lied. There's two universal truths, and the other one is that nobody knows anything.
Yeah.
And we're all just winging it.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what the fuck they're doing.
That was another crazy realization I had in my 20s, where it was like, you realize that nobody has a fucking clue.
Absolutely. That was probably one of the most important realizations, actually, because you're like, I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing.
Yeah.
And here's all these people. I should be an adult, you know? But yeah, nobody fucking knows.
Nobody.
Adulting is realizing that nobody knows what the fuck they're doing.
Nobody has a fucking clue.
Yeah.
And it also helped me have a little bit more sympathy for my parents as well.
Yeah.
Being like my parents had me when they were 30.
Yeah.
I'm 30 in 6 months here. I'm not going to be ready for that kind of responsibility, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
try 16.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, just it's beneficial to know that nobody has a clue. So.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, like another contributing thing to my life anxiety naturally is having a kid at a young age.
Yeah.
But again, yeah, realizing that no one knows what they're doing. No one really has their shit together.
No.
And it takes time to get your shit together. Like, I don't know, I came from a poor single mother, you know, raised on minimum wage, right? My prospects statistically were very, very slim, right? The fact that I'm kind of even where I'm at where I am now is like almost an affront to that. And I think I owe like equal part like self-awareness to be like, what the fuck am I doing? I need to get out of here. And then actually acting on that, and then like luck that ensued following that. I think like I'm very fortunate to kind of be where I'm at, and that's another important thing is remembering to be grateful for what you have and where you're at, and that it's not the end of the journey. You know, there's always a road ahead.
It's another thing. Yeah, big thing is gratitude. Yeah, having gratitude for where you're at, like what you get to experience. Just realizing that even if you're not in the best place right now, there's probably somebody who's probably way worse off than you are.
Sure.
And
I feel like such a cuck thinking that or saying that, but like there's actual like science to back, like research to back that it's legitimately a good way to improve your life. And if you feel a little bit better about yourself, you're more willing to achieve more than when you're shitting all over yourself. Like, yeah.
That's why, like, just making small incremental changes in your day that make you feel slightly better, it has a
snowball effect.
Right? Yeah. So, like, the better you feel, the more you're willing to change. The more you're willing to change, the better you're going to start to feel. And it just, like, people think that they need to just, like, go from, like, fucking A to B in a day or whatever, you know what I mean? It's like, well, I'm not even going to try because I can't do it or whatever. But it's like, no, you have to, like, make, like, tiny changes and just continue those changes every day until they become habits, and then you can add more onto it. And
absolutely.
Because, like, the less like mental capacity that you have to put towards these stupid little things that make you feel better, the more mental capacity you have to think of things that make you are going to make you feel better or whatever, you know what I mean? Like,
totally.
I think it's Joe Rogan who says it all the time, but like your mind is like a computer, it only has so much bandwidth, you know, like
something I thought when I was like in my early 20s, I thought routine was the enemy. I was like, man, I don't want to live a life where like every day is the same and it's just drab and boring, but I don't know, another like realization, you know, you get to the end of your 20s, early 30s, and you realize that like you need routine, you know, you need that like morning routine, you need like a schedule. I actually like for the first time in my life, I have a schedule. I like put everything in. So if you're like, hey, you want to hang out? I'm like, fuck yeah, I do. Like, I'll pencil my schedule, you know? Like,
me too, man.
Like, I put my gym in my schedule, like in my work like with my work stuff, and
Yeah.
it's just like, because then you have to like set aside time to get things done, especially if you're like me and you will just think about things all day every day and not actually do anything about them.
Mm-hmm. That causes a lot of anxiety.
Oh, for sure, yeah, because I'm constantly thinking about the things I should be doing or I could be doing.
Yeah.
For the longest time, when I smoke weed, if I smoke too much weed or too much of the wrong type of weed, I would just like my brain would be like, you should be doing this, you should be doing this. These are all the things you should be doing, and you're not doing any of them. You know, like, I don't know. Also, simple pleasures. Appreciating simple pleasures. I've taken to drinking my morning coffee in the shower. Well, in part it saves time, but B, I don't know, like, it's not quite the same as like a shower beer.
Yeah.
Right? Shower beer, you're like getting ready to party, and then you got this like nice cold drink in a hot shower, and your coffee is like a hot beverage in a hot shower. It doesn't have quite the same appeal, but I put on some like music and like get pumped and like drink my coffee and like, I don't know, shampoo my beard. Like, I don't know. It's just like, it's become part of my routine that I like really enjoy, that like little, adding one little thing to my, you know, morning thing. I highly recommend coffee shower if you have like a ledge or something that's not too far away.
Yeah.
And yeah, especially if you don't have enough time in the morning, you know,
Yeah.
which I definitely do.
Yeah.
But I just like doing that.
That's fair. I don't drink coffee here in the morning.
Okay.
I drink coffee at work because it's free.
Right.
Actually, something that I've added into my morning routine. It's not as pleasurable as coffee in the shower. It has to do with the shower, but it's turning that bitch to cold before I get
shower,
out.
Yeah. I did that for about a month, and I tell you, it felt great.
Yeah.
But it takes. You gotta like brace yourself for it, you know.
Yeah. It's a mental thing.
It's a mental thing.
It's a mental challenge every single morning. Sometimes I will stand there and I'll just stare at that fucking shower knob, being like, "Just do it, man. Just fucking get it over with and do it."
It's good.
And it's never as bad as it's something that you learn.
It's only bad at first. Like, for the first like 5 seconds.
It's the shock that gets you, but it's like the anticipation of the cold is worse than the cold will ever be.
Yeah. So I was doing that when I was landscaping, because I would come home filthy. Then I'm working in the sun all day. A cold shower felt pretty good, but it's still like going from hot, sweaty to cold shower is still a bit of a shock. But
and I only do about 10 seconds maybe, because that's all like my brain can handle, because I literally get brain freeze as I'm standing in the cold shower. But
you should try doing the whole shower. You'll shower for like a minute and a half. Shampoo, soap, okay, I'm done.
I enjoy a good shower.
No,
though,
for
know?
sure.
So,
Yeah, no, for sure.
So it's like kind of like luring me. I wake up and it lures me into comfort, and then I'm like, okay, time to get your day started, bitch, and then bam.
Yeah. I mean, like, another thing that's fortunate for me is I don't have a set time to be at work.
Okay.
So I show up anywhere between 8:30 and 9:30, and that's because I want to, you know. So if I wake up a little bit late, it's not a big deal. If I wake up a little bit early, it's nice. Like, there's no urgency to kind of be gone. So I've started to enjoy just having a cup of coffee in the morning to like sit and relax and like get going slowly, you know.
Yeah.
That's interesting though, actually. And I do remember taking cold showers, and maybe even inspired me to do that again. We'll see.
I also just like, the reason I do it too is like I have a lot of I find it actually helps my body a little bit, because I have a lot of just body aches and pains from my job. I've worked a physical job my entire life.
Right.
So it kind of, thank you, sir.
Yeah, you bet.
It kind of helps, at least for the first half of my day. All those aches and pains are gone, and I think it's because it's like, you know, helping with the inflammation and shit.
Right. Yeah, that's probably a thing. Sure.
But it also just kind of, I start my day off with doing something that I don't necessarily want to do, but I just fucking do it.
It builds self-discipline, right? Because you can then learn to apply that to other things.
Exactly. And
if you have to have a difficult conversation, or like, I don't know, confront your boss for a raise. Like, I don't know, I'm sure you can apply it to a lot of places. Yeah.
Just many things. It's been beneficial. It just
ripping the Band-Aid off.
Yeah, it just trains my brain to be like, sometimes you're gonna do things you don't want to do. You're starting your morning off every morning with that. Yeah. So like, I don't know. Just I've noticed it's very like minuscule the changes that it has instilled, but they are there. You know?
And if it's something you can stick to for a certain amount of time, and then it becomes easier to do things that are hard to do. You know.
It's part of my routine now, the core shower. So
nice.
It's just, it's weird. I don't know. And it's never something that I thought would be like so. But again, it goes back to like establishing routines.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's just one thing that I don't even think about anymore. It's like this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I think again, I forget where I heard it. It might have been like, I think maybe more so this was like Jordan Peterson podcast, but just kind of the whole thing about the more things that you can put into a routine, like the better, because you're not committing that mental energy to it anymore. Like if you're spending, I think it definitely was Jordan Peterson. Now that anyways, the example he gives is if you're going home and you're spending 15 minutes every day when you get home and you're fighting with your spouse or your kids or whatever, that's 15 times 5 days of work days a week, and it's how many hours you waste in your life just fighting with people. So if you can establish some sort of routine and it's something you don't have to think of, it frees up all this mental energy and all this mental space and stuff like that.
It goes back to what we were talking before about freeing up mental energy from expectations or all that kind of stuff.
Comes full circle.
Yeah, totally. I've noticed some parallels between Meditations of Marcus Aurelius and some of the things Jordan Peterson says, and I wonder if maybe he sort of pulls from that a little bit. Well, definitely with the concept of the logos, which you mentioned a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
And then also, that like life isn't supposed to be easy.
Yeah.
Right? There's a reason why Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey is such a prevalent, prominent. It's the same story told over and over and over and over, and we'll never get fucking tired of it because it's always overcoming adversity and saving the princess at the end of the day. You know.
That's why we all like an underdog.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But it's true though. Like, I think he also says, the point of life isn't to be just happy. It's to have purpose. It's to do something worthwhile. It's to challenge yourself. And that will make you happy in turn.
Right.
But the point is, it's like kind of appreciate the journey, not the destination.
Yeah. And again, we're gonna circle back to this. It goes back to the finding meaning thing. Creating your own meaning. Because life is just dreary without it. And it's only meaningless if we allow it to be meaningless.
Exactly. Yeah. And whatever meaning you want to attribute to your life, just do it. Just take that leap, do whatever. It's life, and I can say this from personal experience, life is way better when there is some sort of, I don't even know if it's necessarily a meaning, but it's just something that you can see yourself improve at.
Yeah, for sure.
Whether it be things in my personal life where I have had that, snowboarding, podcasting,
right,
getting better at conversations through podcasting, and just seeing myself improve at these skills that I work towards has been one of the most beneficial things that I have done for my mental state.
Absolutely. Well, I don't think it's any profound thing to say that stagnation very easily leads to dissatisfaction, right? I think that's why a lot of people have midlife crises, or they're depressed at work, right? You've kind of peaked, you don't have anywhere to go, but you're just coasting with it, right? So then obviously it's not something you're getting any enjoyment out of. You got to fight off that stagnation and just be doing things to be pushing yourself forward. But always gotta check it though, right? Because there are those people that are just obsessed with being the best, or hitting the next thing, and you gotta step back a little bit, take some time to enjoy the fact that you've improved, rather than just constantly go. I read an article once, and it was interesting to get the other side of it, and it was a girl who was she was a bodybuilder, and she was basically just saying that she had replaced one sort of eating habit with another sort of eating habit, to the point where it was all consuming, just the same as it was when she, wasn't being a bodybuilder, right? She wasn't getting any enjoyment out of it. She was doing it to like hit the next level and become the best she could be, but then like wasn't getting any fulfillment out of it. It was just like, it was just constant work and constant drive to fucking do better and be better. And I don't know. Yeah. It was nice to read a story like that, because it's like, sometimes you got to make it and then realize that's not what it's all about,
I think that's one of the biggest things that the internet and podcasts and stuff like that, YouTube even, it's one of the biggest gifts that have been given to us, is that we get to hear the stories and the experiences of these super successful people and see how they did it. You listen to something like the Joe Rogan Experience just because it's an easy one. He has super successful people on there and they talk about their life and how they got to where they are. Most of the time it's hard work. And just realizing that is, because like when it was a little, before listening to podcasts, it's sort of like mystical, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
These people are successful because they were lucky or whatever. They were just always that way or whatever. And then, no, you realize that when you listen to people's stories that, it's work. And it goes to the same thing with the bodybuilder thing. It's just like, podcasts had such an effect on my mental health, because it made me realize that there are people out there who think the same way I do. And
absolutely.
like, you know what I mean? So
because like when I started getting into music, and like I've played bass for a really long time, but I've always been a pretty subpar bass player, because I was never willing to put in amount of time to practice to be good. I just wanted to be good. And then I get frustrated that I'm not good, and then I still wouldn't putting in the time to practice and stuff, and a lot of times like I would stop doing something because I wasn't instantly good at it, or I didn't see myself getting better right away, And then what's interesting, having a child, because I see her do the same things, she's in guitar lessons right now, and then she like learns something new from her teacher, and then just kind of assumes that she knows it, doesn't practice it. And then she tried to like show off a song in front of a bunch of people, and she couldn't remember it. And I was just like, it hurts me to watch you go through this, but I'm also seeing a little bit of myself right now, and like maybe it's an important lesson for you to be like, hey, like I don't just know things, like you gotta fucking practice to get good, and build the muscle memory and
all the things. Like, it's one of the hardest things to realize as a human, I think, is to be good at things, you need to put in the work and dedicate the time. And, again, it sounds super cliche, but, appreciate the journey, not,
sure.
Don't obsess over the destination.
I think it was in Freakonomics podcast. I don't know if you know Freakonomics. I think it's like I don't think it's NPR, but it's NPR-ish.
I know of it. Okay. Yeah.
The premise was kind of how like your delusion could be to your benefit. If you think you're way better at something than you are, you tend to perform a little bit better. Then also the obverse of that, if you think you're worse than you potentially could be, then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah. Which was important for me to hear in my like 25-year-old brain, because like I said earlier, I very easily shit on myself. And so it just made me think about how much time I put into berating myself and making myself worse at something than I could be like thinking I'm awesome and then maybe getting better at that thing, But it's so hard to have that level of delusion when like you're not really good at something, or to not know you're not really good at something but actually be really bad at something. Like, to me that seems like the worst feeling ever. Yeah. Like it wouldn't even be a feeling because you wouldn't even know, but just like, okay, if I was really bad at something and I thought I was really good at something and I didn't realize it until a like pivotal moment, that's fucking midlife crisis waiting to happen, Like,
but on the flip side, that negative feeling that you feel in that moment could also inspire you. It's humbling, and it could inspire you to be like, no, well, I'm gonna fucking get better at this. Then
that's true. That's true. Yeah, everybody needs humbling experiences.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. The only thing that I've ever had like in my head where I had like the confidence to be like I'm fucking awesome at this thing, where I had was actually snowboarding. And I think it definitely helped with my ability and stuff, you know. It's like I believed in myself for the first time, actually, probably, that I was actually just awesome at something. And I can't even explain how much benefit snowboarding. It seems kind of trivial or mundane, but like the effects that snowboarding and being good at snowboarding have had on my mental health and my confidence as like a person, are huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That reminded me of there's a thing I saw on Reddit, I think, or it was YouTube. I don't know. It's from somewhere, but fuck this girl, she's on a mountain and she's like got her headphones in and she's buckling her snowboard in. She's singing that like work, and behind her and she's got a GoPro in front of her because she's gonna like film her ride down. And there's a bear behind her on the mountain at the top of the mountain, and you can hear the bear like, but she can't because she's got her headphones in, right? She's just happily singing work. I don't know. And then when she starts going, the bear starts chasing her, and eventually she gets enough speed that the bear gives up. And I was just like, man, like her oblivious to that moment probably saved her life.
Yeah.
You know, because you imagine seeing that, freaking out, and you're panicking, right? Like if you trip or if you slip, you make one like bad move, or you're looking behind you and you hit a tree, like. Yeah, I guess just circling back to how being oblivious to a situation might be to your benefit.
Be beneficial,
Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. Because I'm sure we've all had those moments where you go up, like, especially if you've been overconfident at something.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And you approach a situation where you have to perform, you're like, I'm going to fucking kill this.
Prove yourself to be not as...
Yeah. And it's the worst feeling.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, I think the best thing that we can do for ourselves when we want to perform or whatever is just get out of our own way.
Yeah.
Get out of our own head and stuff.
No expectations, man.
No expectations. Yeah, exactly.
The key to life is those 4 noble truths of Buddhism that were discovered thousands of years ago. And I'll still shit on Buddha. I don't care. He came up with some good shit. I'm realizing this on my own terms, as I should. Yeah. You know.
I still don't consider myself a Buddhist, but the noble truths they are pretty. They're onto something. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Religion's a weird thing.
It is.
I don't know. I think like deep down, I think I'm a bit of a religious person. Like I like the mystery of thinking there's something else out there. That was the thing too when I brought up the absurdism with the 3 points, the 3 ways to deal with the absurd, because I've flirted with all 3 of them, plenty. But yeah, there's just something so beautiful about thinking that there's a higher consciousness out there that we're connected to, and I don't know. I'm still coming down off this like acid trip I had like 3 years ago where I had that like ego death experience and felt like I, was, part of samsara, the like circle of life, death, and rebirth, and I was like visiting like areas of like where people had like kind of emerged and then just kind of settled, and and then like dip out and like go visit someone. It was super weird. Like, and I remember doing it, and I remember like the cycling through, but it's also extremely vague, like a distant dream. But it was such a like beautiful experience to like be outside of myself, and I don't know. I think that reincarnation makes the most sense. I've probably said this before, but have you heard Andy Weir had this short story called The Egg?
Okay, it sounds familiar.
And Andy Weir wrote The Martian with Matt Damon. And,
okay, yeah.
But he also wrote this short story, and it's about this guy who he gets hit by like an ice cream truck, and he's dead, and then he's kind of conjured this image of an afterlife with a authority figure being, and anyway, so the being God is kind of walking him through like, hey, you're dead now, like your kids miss you, your wife is secretly happy because your marriage wasn't going that good anyways, so she'll pretend to be sad, but she's secretly not happy, relieved. But like it's okay, none of that really matters. Like it's nice that you care about your family, that's your first thought when you come back, but like you're obviously going to jump a bunch, but you gonna reincarnate as like a 6th century Chinese farm girl. And he's like, what? Like, time is linear? And he's like, well, no, you're just, like, you've been all beings on the planet, and you will continue to be until you fully mature. And the idea, the overall concept was that the Earth is an egg, and every conscious being in it is, like, part of the evolutionary process to become the next God, right? So, like, God is just the next level of being, and then all of our collective consciousnesses is just that being growing into becoming aware enough to be the, like, you know, 4th dimensional being. It's a really cool story.
Yeah, I kind of get that, and I've had thoughts similar to that in the way that, so definitely under the influence of maybe some sort of psychedelics or whatever, but I've had
It's an incredibly psychedelic story.
Yeah.
There's no doubt that.
I've definitely had the thought of, like, where all of us, just like there's millions and billions of cells and bacteria that operate to form whatever we are, you know? We're just that in some giant being that we consider God or whatever. So.
Or the universe is that, and we're some bacteria on a thing that's just the bacteria in the stomach of fucking God.
Of God, exactly. And we could be fucking cancer for all we know. You know what I mean?
Like, honestly, we're definitely populated like it.
But I don't like to.
No, it's a terrible notion to think.
Yeah, I don't like people who are like, man, the human race is all terrible. Like, we need a population control thing. Like, with the whole coronavirus going around, and people are like, well, it's just population control. I'm like, that is a terrible way to look at it. Like, come on.
Absolutely. But I'll admit I've had that thought.
Oh, yeah.
Like, definitely in my early mid-20s, thinking that, you know, we are cancer to the planet, and it's not a, again, healthy mentality.
No.
Here's another thing too, is back to the, you know, no definitive truths, is you can kind of choose to subscribe to ideas or philosophies, and like, it's up to you. Some of those are more useful or productive than others, right? It's one thing, I think, reading Stoicism is definitely one of the more useful schools of philosophy. You could get hung up on existentialism all day, every day. It's not going to be useful to being a productive member of society, or, you know, even being a happy person necessarily. Yeah. Most existentialist philosophers were horrendously depressed. I think Albert Camus was one of the only ones who really wasn't, from what the little that I've seen, I guess. But yeah, like, Stoicism will actually, the point is to kind of strive to be a, you know, noble individual. So, like, yeah, I can choose to subscribe to nihilism. I can choose to subscribe to Stoicism, right? Which one is going to offer me more benefit in my life and to the life of those around me? Obviously not nihilism, right? Yeah. And the same goes to all sorts of different schools of thought, you know? Like, finding modes of being, things to do, ways of thinking that are actually beneficial to you, and then finding little ways to foster that and make it a habit. So it's not something you have to spend mental time thinking about, and then you can free up that mental space to be more awesome. You know? Like, exactly. We figured life out right here on this podcast. That's probably gonna factor into the name of the podcast. Nice. Now it'll be like figured life out. Yes. The meaning in life, or the meaning of life. Described by Cody and Ben. Two guys who don't really know anything. Yeah. We're just winging it here, guys.
Yeah. Who are in their 30s.
Yeah, exactly.
Or not even in their 30s yet. Yeah. But yeah, no. I definitely agree. Like, yes. Like, I used to be very kind of nihilistic probably in my 20s, you know. Kind of didn't like people, you know.
I think, well, maybe nihilism serves a purpose of, you kind of have to hit that point. Yeah. And then realize how shitty it is.
Yeah, it's kind of like...
And then you keep looking for a little bit more, you know? It's only a small layer of what is potentially true. You know?
It's kind of like you have to hit rock bottom before you get better. Like,
Sure,
you
yeah.
know, so.
Yeah.
And that's something maybe adjacent to rock bottom kind of happened in my 20s, you know, where it's like, well, like mentally at least, and, you know, the aimless rock bottom, I guess. Like,
well, and that's actually on that point. I discovered Nietzsche at that point where I was probably at my rock bottom, and he's definitely a philosopher who's kind of muddied back and forth between meaning and no meaning, and so that was important for me to kind of see, here's this like huge notable historical figure that's also kind of struggled with the same things I'm struggling with right now, and then I was able to kind of latch onto that, but then like kind of ricochet into other, you know, realms. So it kind of helped me pull out of that, you know, the fact that nihilism as a philosophy and someone kind of coining parts of that or seeing someone struggle with that kind of allowed me to kind of jump away from that. So yeah, it's a useful stepping stone.
Yeah. And I think that's another thing that people kind of get hung up on is, just for the example that you brought up kind of with Nietzsche, is that, you know, if I believe in one thing that he says, then I must believe that all the things he says are true. But that's not the case.
No,
like,
I hate that.
Yeah,
honestly, that's such a terrible way to look at anything.
Yeah, no, it's like that. It's again that like black and white mentality.
Yeah,
it's not beneficial.
Nah, you have to pick and choose what is valuable, and then take that, and then fuck everything else. Yeah,
no, definitely, and that's how I approach all the people that I am admirers of today, like Sam Harris, Jordan Peterson, like. Those two people disagree with each other, but somehow I can like agree with them both. You know,
sure. Yeah.
So like,
100%.
But I think the reason people don't is because it's the same reason that people, you know, they're like, I am a conservative and this is what I believe in.
Exactly.
It's easier, you know. It's
so then you can disregard all the things, even that are good, or attach to the thing that you.
Because you don't have to think about it then.
You don't have to think about it.
It's like freeing up the mental energy, but like doing none of the work.
Well, that's the thing, because I think a lot of people want to free up that mental energy, and that's why they don't spend the time thinking about it.
Yeah.
That's why they don't introspect about why they carry these terrible habits with them, or why they react certain ways to things. They just don't want to spend the mental energy on thinking with that. They'd rather just be looking up sweet cars, watching sports, whatever, the latest fashion, whatever the fuck their thing is, right? Like, so in a way, I think like maybe in our brains we want to free up that mental energy, but then some people, perhaps like you and I, in some cases, we haven't been able to, or we're just, it's too heavy, so we keep thinking about it, and maybe you've missed out on enjoying a lot of trivial things because you're so hung up on the bullshit.
Yeah.
Right, so I don't know. Again, I'm always going to be like, the balance, man. Like, it's not all bad to be dumb, for lack of a better word. You know?
No, ignorance is bliss.
Yeah,
like.
exactly. For that reason, right?
Yeah,
We're struggling to reach the far side of this like mental freedom when like some people already have that.
They just have that built in.
Yeah, but like maybe in an unhealthy level because they don't have the other side of it. Right?
Yeah. I like living in the
in between.
Yeah, and also like having the knowledge that I do, but then like also stepping back on it, and like I've never been as comfortable with myself as I am right now.
Yeah, same here.
And it just keeps getting like more and more and more.
Yeah.
But I've also put in a lot of the work, you know, a lot of the self-introspection work, and like just a lot of the like self-loathing and getting over that, and just.
Do you think that psychedelics had an important role to play in that for you?
For sure.
Yeah. Without a doubt, I think.
And I've said that a few times, but it definitely, like, there's a few psychedelic trips that I can like definitely be like, that was life-changing.
Sure.
You know? Yeah. And it's not even in the moment, maybe not, but like
later you kind of think on it, and especially if it was like a particularly profound. But sometimes even it's just like just a side thought that just kind of floats up, and you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Or at the time you're like, whoa, and then later you're like, whatever. You know, or like
6 months later, you're like,
yeah,
whoa.
You're like, oh my god, this makes sense. You know?
Yeah.
That's why I said like I feel like I'm still coming down off that one acid trip I had like 3 years ago, because it's slowly kind of like I'm slowly kind of embodying the things that, or like realizing soberly the things that were just like slammed in front of my face, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to this live viewing of it's called Dosed. It's like a documentary where they cured a heroin addict with ibogaine, iboga.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Okay, yeah, it was a live viewing. They had a panel come on after of like people in the like psychiatry industry that are like kind of advocates for this psychedelic treatment. Super crazy. The one guy described this ibogaine as if like ayahuasca is like the caring mother, ibogaine is like the stern father in terms of like the level of trip and the way it like confronts you, and the way it kind of like makes you deal with your shit. But it was kind of crazy. So this girl, she's a heroin addict. She thinks she's kind of lucky because her mom kind of keeps her off the street, lets her kind of stay there, but she's always back and forth between, you know, what is it? It's not morphine, but some kind of, they're giving her some kind of like methadone. That's what it is. Methadone to kind of cope with. I'm not even sure what it does. The withdrawals of heroin, but it's also addictive in its own right. Like
I think it helps with like the withdrawals and stuff like that.
But it's like addictive in its own right. She's constantly back and forth between that. So they start with mushrooms. And she has some like pretty profound moments, and she realizes, and then she'll stop using for like maybe a couple days or like a week at a time, but always kind of go back. And then they move to this like ibogaine treatment. They go to this place. It was in Vancouver, I think, actually. Super cool, but man, like the first time she took it, right? They do the treatment, the ceremony. The next day, she was legitimately acting like a 4-year-old, like giggling and not being silly, and then being like moody and grumpy, and it was like, man, like it literally fucking like melted down her neural pathways to like rebuild them, and that's why it's so effective at treating these like insane addictions. And then they ended up doing a few treatments, but by the end of it, she was cured, which is pretty incredible to see. But man, I'm such an advocate for this like movement, this psychedelic movement, because I feel like I've kind of treated, like, psychedelics have been my therapist for the last 10 years. Like I've worked through a lot of emotional or like mental issues, and obviously like I still have a ways to go with some things. Like I've realized in the last couple of years I'm incredibly emotionally avoidant, and I always knew that I was, but like I thought I had a bit of a handle on it, but like I definitely don't. And so that's something that I'm more aware of, and that's something only really like, I guess, like a serious relationship could have taught me more so than psychedelics, right? But just realizing that like, it's not going to cure everything, but it's definitely helped me through a lot of fucking things that I don't think I would have come across in any other way in any capacity. Sure. And it's to circle back at the beginning when we were talking about our friend group and how we've just been like, because we could have just been doing drugs and getting fucked up and partying like all the fucking time, but we were never really like that, like we enjoyed the like rave scene and stuff like that, but just for the most part, maybe because we're all introverts, but we, a lot of times we just rather just like hang out with a small group of people and like do some things. And it was never to get super fucked up. It was for like the profundity, the exploration,
even just the gathering aspect,
the camaraderie, the
almost
connection.
kind of like a ritualistic thing,
Well, I feel like we're as like, because most of us in our group, obviously there's some people who are extroverted, but most of us are like we're social introverts and maybe lacked a lot of like connection with other, like meaningful connection, and maybe we all kind of crave that in a way. So it's cool to kind of get that,
doing psychedelics with like a close group like that has probably yielded some of the most like unfiltered feelings of love that I've maybe ever experienced. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and just genuine connection that is genuine. Like,
well, because it's one thing to be high on MDMA and meet around a person and think you love that person.
Yeah.
Right? And like obviously that you don't really love that person, but in the moment you're like, you're really
you,
cool
man.
and I
Yeah.
appreciate you.
Yeah.
You know, but then it's a whole other thing when you like have that with a person that you actually know extremely well and you can actually say that you love. You know.
Yeah.
Because then it's like just like another layer of profundity, you know.
And also, one big thing that psychedelics did for me, especially, I don't know, I guess MDMA it's kind of classified as a psychedelic.
I kind of lump it in with that, even though it's not psychedelic, but
it's like one of those beneficial drugs, you know, that like, so it's kind of like psychedelic.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that did for me, though, is just being able to accept and give love while not on MDMA, you know? Like,
realizing that you have the capacity for it.
Yeah. Because, like, before MDMA and before kind of getting into the whole drug thing, like, just, like, me and people in my family, we didn't really hug or show affection, or even my friends, you know? And then now, every time I see or leave my friends or family, I give them a giant hug, you know? And it's something that I, like, brought into my family every time, because this is after I'd moved out, but like every time I would see them or like leave, I would hug every single person and be like, I do this to my friends, why shouldn't I do this to my family? Like, and now all my family does that, you know? It's like they just do it on their own now, and it's like they even hug my friends and stuff when they meet them and whatnot, and it's just like, it's so interesting. And it's just, one time my brother even mentioned, he's like, you know, you totally like brought this into the family. Like,
for sure.
I was like, oh shit, I
I'm
guess
sure
I
your
did.
parents probably talked about it, and I'm sure they're like super stoked.
Yeah, well, like, because like I'm sure they grew up in the way they did, and you know, it's like,
absolutely,
they didn't know if it was like cool or whatever to show affection to, you know, your elder kids or whatever. But now it's just become like a thing that's so regular, and it's weird to think that wasn't a thing in my life, and now it like it's just like something that I don't even think about. It's like, obviously I'm gonna hug you, like.
Here's the thing that I feel like I wish was a lot better with the English language, because I feel like other languages maybe have more explanations or ways to put it, but we have one word for love.
Yeah.
But the love you have for a friend and the love you have for your parents is a different kind of love. The love you have for your cat, your houseplants, your a thing, or a like
pizza.
Yeah, exactly. Like we have one catch-all phrase.
Yeah.
And there's just so many different layers of it, and like you can love one friend more than another friend, and it's just, you could love a friend differently than another friend, right? Like you still love them, but it's like a different. And I just wish we had more ways of kind of extrapolating that, because I think it might have been a Freakonomics podcast again. It could have been the TED podcast. I don't know. It's one of the two. But they'd found that languages, people with the first language of certain first language of certain languages were better at saving money than other languages. And they found the correlation was there's more ambiguity between future, past, and present tense in the languages where people were better at saving money than the people who, the languages who have the separation. English is one of those languages, right? It's a lot easier to think of something in the future. Yeah. But it's also easier to think of it as something in the future, not something you need to worry about right now. Yeah. Whereas if there's less distinction between future and now, you're more likely to worry about saving money, future, right? And I wonder if the same could be applied to love, and maybe some languages that have more ways to describe love might have a more appreciation for those other layers.
Yeah,
I don't
like
know.
a healthier attitude towards love or something.
Perhaps.
Like
or, I mean, maybe they don't, but maybe like a healthier way. I don't know. That's not a fully fleshed out idea that I have.
I've had a similar thought, just because there are languages out there that are more metaphorical, you know? Yeah. Like Farsi, for example, it deals in like, at least what I know from the person who I knew who spoke Farsi. This is maybe not complete fact, but it seems like it's more of a metaphorical language, so it has more kind of like descriptive ways of describing things and stuff like that. And I feel like having that as your first language is going to affect the way that you see the world.
Right.
Because you're going to see it differently because it's described differently to you, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So I feel like the language, just as much as like the culture, has an effect on the way that you're going to go through life.
Absolutely.
And the way that you're going to see life.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a correlation there. Mm-hmm. But then what I was kind of hung up on in that moment was, is it better to see all loves the same, you know, and appreciate them the same? Or is it not?
Yeah.
And maybe there's a bit of both. I mean, maybe it's nice to see a lot of value in a thing, right? But then are you putting too much value in your things that you love as opposed to the people you love, you know? Maybe it dilutes. It's like using a word over and over again, a word that has a deep meaning or often a powerful meaning, often a negative one, something like Nazi, right? You start calling everyone Nazis, suddenly Nazi isn't such a bad word anymore, right?
Yeah.
Like, is it then the same with love? When you start saying you love everything, does it lose its power, lose its meaning when you really, really love something, you know? And I now that word that comes out of my mouth, I feel like that it's more leaning that way, you know? Maybe we undervalue love as much as maybe we should because there isn't layer distinctions.
Yeah, and it's also being thrown around all the time, you know?
Yeah.
Like you know, I absolutely love that thing, or I absolutely love pizza, or I absolutely love, like, these are thoughts I've had before. I've actually, like, a few times I've considered writing something about this because, and it's about this very thing. It's like, how can I love, you know, my significant other, my parents, my friends, and pizza, but all those things are different, you know, but it's the same word.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, language is a super powerful thing. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, it's one of those, we use it all the time, so we don't really think about how powerful it is, but it really is. Like, I don't know, even, like, language aside, but, like, data is the most powerful thing right now on the planet. It's more valuable than any resource, oil, or anything like that. And that's all just, like, words. It's information, right, about people, but language is how we convey information. And language is often how we convey feelings and how we convey our thoughts, right? So, I don't know. I've romanticized the hell out of learning a second language, but this is the ADD in me. I cannot settle on one. I've tried French. I've tried Spanish. I've tried German. I've tried Polish. I've even tried Japanese for like a very brief moment in time. I was really obsessed with this Japanese metal band called the Sex Machine Guns. They're so fucking good. They're really cheesy, but so fucking good. And I thought maybe I could learn a little bit of Japanese. I was like 20, I think, at the time, but it's just such a different language, and I don't know anybody Japanese to speak with, and I think that's like a pivotal thing, is to know somebody you could speak the language with.
Oh yeah, because it like, you can learn it as much as you want, but if you're not talking to somebody who actually knows, and like. And also, the way that you speak it in countries is going to be different than the way you learn it.
Dialects.
Because it's the same way with English, right? Like, there's slangs and different regional things that mean different things and shit like that.
And I think we're going to keep just cycling back in different loops here, but we're talking about picking up things that people say, picking up their mannerisms or laughs, the like actual words that come out of their mouth. And I'm pretty sure that's how slang and the different dialects form, right? You start talking like the people around you, they start talking like the people around them. Suddenly you're slightly different from the people over here that speak the same language more or less than you, and then over time it turns into something slightly different. If it's like at the very least it's an accent, right? But you different slang words, and then eventually over time it like builds into a whole new dialect.
Yeah, potentially a whole new language. I'm pretty sure that's how English was born.
Yeah,
right?
I think that's legit what like linguists study, is like how these languages kind of evolve in their pockets or whatever. Yeah. One of the girls I went on a date with, she's Maltese.
Okay.
Malta's like a tiny little island country just off of Italy, but they've been kind of owned by different countries and different cultures over time, and their language is like half Arabic, half Latin. It's so fucking weird. It's like, it's cool. Yeah. It's weird. I've never seen anything like it. Yeah. We'll have a sentence and it'll be like a Latin word, Arabic, Latin, and Latin, or something like that. Like, it's just, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's like the same with English, right? It's like English developed, I'm pretty sure, in England.
Yeah.
But it's just this little island that just got owned by so many people over time, you know, like
there's actually quite a bit of influence from Nordic languages.
And Rome, Latin.
Yeah.
Because Rome was there for a while. German, also French. Like
because the like aristocracy.
The Normans, bro.
Well, yeah, totally. But also like the aristocracy, like the royalty in England spoke French, right? Because it was more of a cultured language. But I actually watched yesterday on YouTube the word "fuck" in the English language. They're not 100% sure, but they believe it actually has Norse origins.
Oh, really?
Yeah, fucking or fuck it or something like that.
Yeah.
Like
I watched that. There was a whole documentary. It was like almost 10 years ago now, probably, but it was on Netflix, and it was all about the word "fuck."
Yeah.
And the one thing that I took away from that documentary is that there's no other language that has the phrase "fuck it."
Right.
You know, like, oh, I'm gonna go. Or, what? You're gonna go, or you know, you're thinking about doing something. Yeah. You're like, fuck it, I'll do that.
Yeah.
No other language has that. They think that kind of shapes the way English speakers even think about things, because we can just be like, you know, we're a little bit more like, fuck it, you know, whatever.
It's possible, actually. Yeah. Well, yeah, and then I'm sure it's nothing new to say that the versatility of the word "fuck," you can kind of just throw it in any context and it just works.
Yeah.
But I never thought about that, just like the actual phrase saying "fuck it."
There's no other language that has that exact phrasing of "fuck it."
Interesting.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I think I would have loved to study linguistics.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Had I had the foresight to be curious about that in my teenage years.
Yeah, so many things like that, though.
Yeah, it's just I love language. I love all of it. I love learning new ways to describe things. I love just in all the times I've tried to learn a language, I might pick up a phrase or two, and I just like having that in my repertoire, but it really has no value because I can't do anything with it. But it's just so fascinating how you can make various sounds with your mouth and have it mean things.
And different things to different people.
And in some ways I could never fully, at this point in my life, fully learn how to speak a dialect without an accent, because my mouth is not trained to make those types of sounds. I don't know. It's absolutely fascinating. It's such a weird niche nerdy thing to be nerdy about.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy to think that if you learn a language, I think it's 13 is the cutoff age, that if you learn it before 13, you won't have an accent in that language. Yeah. But if you learn it after 13, then you'll have an accent.
Yeah, I could see that.
So it's if you're from England, but you move here when you're 4, you're going to get rid of that accent.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's just kind of crazy to think about, that's how malleable your brain is when you're younger.
Oh, it's insanely malleable.
Yeah.
I watched a documentary on babies on Netflix. Literally just fucking constantly just downloading information at rapid speeds. Could you imagine if you could figure out a way to re-put your brain in that state as an adult? I wonder if we'll ever actually get there. I feel like it's possible.
Yeah.
I think it's within the realm of possibility, and how fucking insane that would be.
Mm-hmm.
You could just go to a spa and put your brain in that baby state, and you just fucking download information.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah.
8 hours in spa.
Yeah.
And then just fucking turn your brain into baby mode.
Yeah.
And just fucking learn a whole new language. You just leave and you're just fully fluent.
You're fully fluent.
Fuck.
No
I
accent.
want to live in that future. That's
But if you live in that future, does it take the joy of learning away from everything?
Maybe. You're right. Maybe, because you can just fucking download it and...
It's about the destination, my friend. Sorry, it's about the journey, not the destination.
Yeah. There's, I'm sure you've seen it. It's a meme, I guess. That's only loosely correlated to what we were talking about, but it was strong men breed good times breed weak men breed hard times breed strong men, and it loops. And I think it's in reference to empires, but I feel like we are in the good times breed weak men, or weak men breed weak times breed strong men. I don't know. We're in hard times right now, I think. Yeah. In Western culture, because obviously, like, the U.S. is at the forefront of Western culture currently, and it's without a doubt they're definitely in decline. And I'm wondering how many parallels. I would love to, like, actually see a historian, like, draw parallels between, like, the fall of
Rome.
Yeah, like the Western Roman Empire and the parallels between that and not like right at the fall, but like the like over the hump into the like downward slope, because I feel like the U.S. is 100% there right now. With like, I don't know, I saw the other day someone erected a statue of Donald Trump naked with like a super tiny penis, and it was like painted like flesh colored and stuff too, just in the middle of some fucking place. And it was like, I'm in the Roman times, I'm sure it was just like the same shit as that, but they just painted it on the wall or whatever. Like, but it just makes me feel like it's like the same shit.
Yeah.
You know, and these are like the signs of decline.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Well, like, you have to think about it. Is like every empire that has come before us has fallen. But, like, think about how long the Roman Empire lasted.
Yeah.
It was, like, 1,000 years or something.
Yeah, it would have seemed like an eternity, at least for...
Canada, 150 years old? Just over 150 years.
Yeah.
U.S., just, like, 200 or something. I'm not exactly sure. But, like, we're young compared to, like, empires that have come before us. So, like, we could be going through that overarching thing and towards the fall, but... I definitely agree. I think we are in, I think we're maybe in the weak times.
Breed strong men?
Breed strong men.
Could be. Hopefully.
I like to think that, but that's just kind of like me being optimistic maybe.
Well, but... I feel it. Honestly, I think it won't be our generation. Our generation was the one that kind of got fucked over.
Yeah.
I think it'll be the next, the Gen Zs, the Doomers. Or what do you get, the Zoomers? I don't know. I've heard them called both. Doomers was a funny one because everyone's talking about how like the Boomers fucked all the young people with the climate change and the economy and like can't afford to buy a house. So just the term Doomers just give me a good laugh.
Yeah, we're on the tail end of it. I think like it's weird because we're like on the tail end of millennials,
Yeah, no, I think we're actually like smack in the middle of millennials.
True.
I think the tail end of millennials is like 22 or 23.
Yeah, I think it's like 95 or something like that.
Yeah, I think we're like the textbook millennials.
Yeah.
But yeah, like we grew up with this brand new thing and we had no idea how much it was gonna, how like the shockwaves of the internet. We had no idea like the repercussions of that, right? So again, going back to how no one fucking knows what the fuck they're doing and we're all just winging it, like we're just dealing with these repercussions of that. And I think it's important because there's a lot of hate put on the older generations for putting us here, but I think it's important to realize that they had no idea it was going to happen, right? So instead of putting the blame on them, we just need to like figure out what we're going to do to move forward.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, pointing blame or trying to assign blame to people has no real benefit.
Yes,
like
including yourself.
Yeah, no, totally. And like who can like okay, hey, it's your fault. Well, yeah, okay, so it's my fault.
Yeah.
What does
cool,
that?
Yeah, like
great.
What are we gonna do about it?
Yeah.
Help me. Help you.
So like at the end of the day, pointing or assigning blame doesn't really do anything.
Yeah, but it makes you feel good.
It makes you feel better. Yes, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not my fault. I swear.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's the thing. Like people don't. It's easier to point the finger to them than to be like, oh, I'm the one who's fucked up here. Or this is what I could do to make things better or whatever. But
right. But then it becomes noble when you're like, okay, this is my fault. Let me fix this.
Yeah.
Or let me take the first steps to kind of.
Or it's even more noble being like, okay, this isn't my fault, but how do we fix this?
Yeah, that's true. Actually, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's I don't know. It's important to find like virtues for yourself. I have a really silly one, actually. So I've been taking transit to work, also to school, for the last little while, and I noticed what I think there's a window of time to hold the door open for somebody. It gets to the point where they have to run a little bit then you're actually doing them a disservice, because then they have to like feel like they I don't know. It's a super like silly little thing, but now I have like a I don't want to call it like a code, a personal code, that I will not hold the door open unless you were like 3 steps away. And you don't, like, if it's the point where you have to run a little bit and I'm holding the door, like, I failed in that. You know?
Totally fair, I get that.
But, like, it's also rude if someone just walks through the door and they don't even acknowledge that there's a lineup of people behind you, right? Like, it's just a courteous thing to open the door. Yeah. But it's also not so courteous when the person is, like, 15 feet away and then you're holding the door open for them, and then they feel like they have to hurry up to satisfy you because you're holding the door, you know? Mm-hmm. And obviously both of them comes from a noble place, albeit superficial or like minor, but you should do nice things for people, but you shouldn't put them in a position where they feel like they need to compensate for that. Mm-hmm. And this is a really simple little minuscule day-to-day thing, but I feel like the larger implications are valid.
Yeah, no, totally. Because that could be like completely applied to the way that our society is kind of headed right now, and like the overcompensation of just like kind of like left-wing values and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where it's like mostly like we can all agree that, racism, sexism, homophobia, all that's bad.
Yeah. But
we're taking it to a place that is almost ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's like kind of like your version is like the simplified version of that. Almost.
Sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like,
yeah. Like forced diversification in like film casts.
Yeah.
Which I'm not overly opposed to, but if the part was written, like in Europe, right? Like it medieval Europe, then it doesn't make sense to throw a bunch of Asians in there, mm-hmm. unless they're like merchants from China, like then fuck yeah.
It's period piece.
Yeah, exactly. But like if it's a fresh story and you're writing it, feel free, fuck yeah,
whatever,
right? Make whatever. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a whole other. Like I don't even know. Like, that's been a whole journey in itself because, like, I remember one of the first podcasts that we did. It was me, you, Jordy, and Brendan.
Yeah, I remember that.
That was like 3 years ago. We were all sitting around. We were all drinking. That's when the first like wave of like the whole, all the words you use to specify gender or whatever was coming out and stuff like that. And we were kind of harping on it a little bit, being like, this is ridiculous. Yeah. Like fucking otherkin or blah blah blah, and like. Fast forward to where we are now, and I'm like, okay, I kind of get it, right. Like I don't, but like to an extent,
right?
But it's
my thought on it was agree on a neutral term.
Yeah,
they, them. If you can all agree on that, some people say that's not linguistically correct. I feel like it's better than creating a new thing, and if it works, then it works. We can having to memorize 87 different ones and counting, right? That's absurd. But that's a lot of changing your language just to accommodate, right? But if we pick one that you don't identify as he or she, you identify as in between somewhere. We define the in between, and then that's an easy thing to kind of slide into language and have people accept.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And like I've just become a little bit more, I guess, empathetic towards people who do want. I don't know. It's just because it's not my experience doesn't mean that it's not valid or whatever. Like. But like, maybe 2-3 years ago, whenever we did that podcast, it was a little different. It was new, it was scary, whatever it was. It was
and a lot of people that were pushing the agenda weren't the people that actually were the ones that wanted their identities.
Yeah.
It was people advocating for those people.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was going with the whole like door thing. Comparing it to that is like it's a lot of people who. They're not even part of the issue, but they're advocating because it's like they want to be woke or whatever it is. I hate that word now because it's just overused. But
I know. I remember when I used to actually be woke.
Yeah, no, totally. I was woke as fuck at one point, but
my wokeness got usurped. And now, I can't be woke anymore. It's fucking bullshit.
Yeah. Now I'm some sort of like meta woke. I don't know. What it is, but
is it meta woke or pseudo woke or the real woke? I don't know.
OG woke.
OG woke. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when wokeness meant something.
Yeah, but it's, as all things, as you kind of learn more about it and you meet people who actually do, identify certain things, you garner a certain sort of, empathy towards those people, and it just helps you see the issue. And all the people yelling at you on social media, or all the people getting angry, that has never ever going to change anybody's mind. It's actually having interactions with the people who are affected by what is going on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
It's again, conversations always kind of find their way to Joe Rogan, but he had the Daryl Davis on his podcast.
Oh yeah, the KKK.
Yeah,
I didn't actually listen to that podcast, but I actually heard of him from a different podcast years ago.
Yeah, but for those who don't know, he is a African American gentleman who basically goes around and converts KKK members, or reforms them basically, by just being him and having conversations with them.
It was over the phone, so they didn't know that he was black.
Yeah.
Right? He would pretend to be maybe from another city, or interested in the chapter.
Yeah, he just never said anything about his race, and then they would meet him, and
be like, holy fuck, I've been friends with you for how long over the phone?
Yeah. But he's converted something 200 KKK members or something like that. Yeah. And it's just, again, it's just maybe because I have a lot of people in my life who are kind of a little bit more left leaning, and they're like, oh, fuck Nazis, and they talk about, neo-Nazis, and I'm like, okay, yeah. But do you know their life? Do you know where they're coming from?
Well, and that's the thing too, actually. I met a guy at a small house party thing once, and he was a reformed neo-Nazi.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine told him that I was Jewish, which I'm not really, but whatever, used to be Jewish, and he lost his fucking mind. He was like, oh my god, I can't believe I'm drinking with a Jew, but he was trying to be my best friend. And it was a little overbearing, but anyways, he told he joined the neo-Nazi thing because he had alcoholic, unloving parents. He was lost. He had no sense of community. He got a sense of community from these people, and he had an outlet for his internalized anger.
Yeah.
Right? And that's most of these people that are going around fucking shit up like that. It's not really about... It's just about having something external to project your hate towards, often your self-hatred towards, right? And so these are sick, unhealthy people. They're not they do horrible shit. They think horrible things, but that doesn't mean they're irredeemable.
No, totally. And just as a caveat, the people who are on the far left who villainize these neo-Nazi people, they're just as bad as the neo-Nazi people.
Yeah, for sure.
For different reasons,
it's
obviously.
It's the same level of bigotry, which is hilarious that they freak out about bigotry, but the whole the meaning of bigotry is marginalizing a small group of people, or lumping them all together based off of a small idea that you think that they are, right? It's so funny seeing it play out. You're literally what you preach against. I don't know.
Yes, but and also, that being said, we're obviously not advocating for any sort of neo-Nazism.
100%. Yeah, never. Absolutely never.
It's just, I feel like people just need to be able to put themselves in other people's shoes a little better sometimes, and just maybe think of okay, this is where this person is at now, but how did they get there? What was their life that led them to this point?
Yeah, and if you truly want to be noble about it, hey, what can I do to maybe help these people get out of that mentality? Right?
And it's not to tell them they're wrong and to shut up and just say you're wrong and yell at them.
Yeah.
It's to empathize with them.
Yeah.
Have a conversation with them.
Have a conversation.
I'm
not a big fan of Steve Crowder, but I've watched some of his Change My Mind series. You've probably seen the meme, Change My Mind. Something ridiculous, Change My Mind.
Yeah.
There was a really good one he had with this Ethiopian girl at some university in Texas, I think. And it was about the what is that? Fuck, I forget what it's called, but it's like the changing the expectancy, like the admission levels for different ethnic groups.
Oh, okay, yeah.
For university, I forget what it's called. Affirmative action, that's what it's called. And she was obviously like a very intelligent young girl, and it was really nice to see her kind of sit down with him and have like a very engaging conversation and listen to what he has to say and say her piece. But there was just a really beautiful moment where she said she came from a small town. Her parents owned a gas station or worked at a gas station. I don't know, one of the two. Didn't have a lot of money. She went to a school, didn't have a lot of prospects. And she thinks, or she wasn't really sure. She like caught him, or he caught her in this moment where she wasn't really sure if it wasn't for affirmative action, if she would have had gotten into the school. And she had, like she was like, yeah, she was obviously really intelligent, and like she had, like, I don't know, written a good paper or whatever. I don't know how to get into a prestigious university because I just never got to that point in my life. But it was evident that like she was definitely capable of being there, but she thinks that maybe she wasn't if it wasn't for affirmative action. And he was like, well, like, wouldn't you rather like know that you've made it and you belong here rather than have that like doubt in the back of your mind that like if it wasn't for this little tweak in the system, maybe I wouldn't be. And yeah, you could tell that like really like they had a moment where it's like, oh, maybe there's another side to this, you know. And it's important. I've watched a few of those, and they don't always go like that. Steven Crowder's he can be very stubborn in his ways, and the intent of the show is to have an open dialogue, but he's often very unreceptive to the other side. But this particular moment was absolutely beautiful. It's just, yeah, it's cool to see. And then, I don't know. He made up some point where it's actually counterintuitive to have affirmative action, which maybe is relevant or maybe not. The point is to give people with lower prospects the opportunity to go, and then they go to university, they get a university education, and then they better their lives. I think it's the wrong solution to the right problem, right? Obviously, you want to pull people out of these ghettos and these bad situations because they tend to beget life cycles of bad situation, but it's the wrong way to do it, you know? Something like I don't know. I was like all dicks out for Andrew Yang, and I was pretty upset when he dropped out. But I'm not overly surprised. But that something like universal basic income, which would give people a little bit of a crutch to kind of get out, or even if it's not like that, but if they could have incentives in other ways, maybe better public school incentives for low income communities or something like that. Better ways to give, so that they can develop the skills themselves and not just lowering the bar. Because lowering the bar for some people and not for others is just never going to be a good situation to kind of get things up there. But
Well, a big thing that I've heard, I listened to a podcast, but a big thing that I heard that's like basically what's wrong with kind of some of the higher Ivy League schools and stuff like that is that like they have such small admission acceptance, you know, they'll only accept like 4,000 students per year or something, where like the best universities in Canada have like 80,000 students in it or something like that, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's still a, you know, in Canada we just make more room for people, whereas in the United States, in their schooling system, it's more like elitist and kind of like,
well, yeah, if you have the prestigious schools like Harvard and Yale and stuff like that, and you have a small amount of people in, right, you can charge the absurdly large fees for them to get in, and then also retain the like value of the name, because it's a name, it's a brand, right?
It's
you have Harvard on your resume, that puts you in another league above other people that go to lesser schools, right? So it's almost the same concept as paying for fucking Gucci.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe you can argue that with that price you can afford, you know, the better professors and that kind of stuff, and better equipment and better research facilities.
Yeah, the podcast that I was listening to, at least, they basically did a thing, and it basically came to the conclusion that the output of students, it doesn't output anything more valuable in terms of students, but where it does give value is with its professors.
Yeah.
Where they have to teach less, basically, so they have more time devoted to research and thinking about things and stuff like that. Yeah.
Which is good in its own right.
Which is good in its own right, yes, yes, because we need those people too.
Absolutely.
Again, it comes full circle to, like, you know, Maslow's hierarchy.
Yeah, absolutely.
We need the people who are going to philosophize about that shit and, like...
Which is why I tend to be left-leaning when it comes to social services.
Yeah.
I'm never a fan of cutting education funding or healthcare funding. I think those are two fundamentals that we should just have covered. Yeah. At least not 100%, but to some degree. It's just beneficial for everybody. And I think it's funny when, to me anyways, when conservatives say, you know, like, you know, balance the budget and we got to save money and stuff like that. But it's like, who are you saving money for? Because you cut education funding. Now, like, I have a child, so now I'm paying more for her to go to school. And, like, most people have kids, so they're all paying. And then you go to university, now you're paying more money. I just got my interest raised by 1% for my provincial interest for student loans, right? But that's thousands of dollars that I'll be out by the end, right? Yeah. So, like, who's saving money, you know? Not me.
No, it's right? It's the politicians who are saving money to, like, line their pockets a little bit more. Like,
maybe if that's not entirely the case, maybe that's part of the case, man. That's not the whole case.
No, I'm sure it's not the whole case.
I'm sure some people who don't have kids or families are gonna save a couple extra bucks in tax dollars, right?
Yeah, maybe.
But like, that's not all of us, you know. It's not beneficial to more people than just the individual, and it's important to find the balance between those two, but there are things that help in the long run for the greater good. And
that is stuff like education and healthcare.
More people should have access to that
everybody should have access to that.
Back to the whole affirmative action thing. If we could get poor communities access to good education, they wouldn't need the change in GPA or what is it, the SAT scores or whatever the fuck they do in the States.
Well, and the thing is that again, some podcast told me this, but it's the more people that you bring out of poverty, the better it is for everybody in the world, basically, because they are more likely to have less kids, you know, be more responsible with stuff like that. And
because I've heard, and I don't know if this is Maxime Bernier's stance on the matter, but it's something that was brought up to me in response to that, because some people think it's racist. He just doesn't want colored people, and I don't think that's entirely true. And the argument is, if you're bringing less, like, more people that come into the country that have value to offer to the country in terms of economic value, is better for the country, but also better, like, you take race out of it, right? But, like, you have wealthier people coming from the Middle East, from China, from India, from Africa, people with skills, right? So they can come here, they can utilize those skills, make a decent money. There's less of those people going into poor communities, and then filling up the poor communities with colored people, and then further separating the whole poor minority from the rich elite white people, right? You have less of that because the people that are coming have jobs and skills to offer. Yeah. Right? Sure, it makes a good point. And there's a lot of colored people in countries that they do get these. India's a prime example of this. There's huge emphasis on becoming a doctor, an engineer, those kind of things, but there's not that much room for all the doctors and engineers that they're pumping out, because so obviously they're going to go to other countries and utilize those skills. So it's good for that. One thing, though, I would say, in Canada, where I don't think that opinion necessarily holds too much weight, is because we're the second largest country in the world. We have 30 million people here, right? Like, we have lots of room for immigrants. There was actually, I think it was a YouTube video I watched on economics, but there was actually, in the 60s, they actually had a plan, I think it was by like 1980, to have 100 million people here. And the idea was that we grow the people, we also grow our economy, we grow our export output, and more people, to contribute to things. And that was like a goal that we had that somewhere along the line just kind of got dissipated. And yeah, and then I guess on the flip side too is giving people opportunity to go from poverty to not. And that's the thing, when you go to SAIT was full of immigrant people. I'm sure University of Calgary, I think, is a lot the same way. And a lot of the thing is that these immigrants, they come here and then they tell the kids, you have to do good, you have to get a good job and get a good life, that's why we're here, they have that drive to fucking be good. So I think we're actually going to alleviate that separation of white people and poor minorities in Canada especially. I don't know the deal with the States is, but I think that's a thing here, and that's kind of just me speculating, but I think the race thing is going to kind of sort itself out over the next couple decades, and that yes, we can be mindful about not being racist, but we don't need to force it. It's happening on its own, and we be mindful of it and we be respectful of it, but we treat all of our people the same regardless of race, color, creed, and just let people be people.
No, and I think probably a good thing to end on is treat people like people, because we're all just people in the end,
Yeah, nobody knows fucking anything.
No, nobody. We're all the same.
Us, we figured it out.
Yeah, and obviously listen to us because we
figured life out.
We
on
figured
this
life
podcast.
out.
So if you listen, you're doing yourself a huge service.
A huge service. But yeah, people are people. Treat people like people, no matter what their race, sex, sexual orientation, whatever it may be. We're all people. We're all in this thing fucking together, especially nowadays with globalization and shit. So just treat each other decently.
Yeah.
Go back to the golden rule. Treat others the way you would like to be treated.
Yeah. Let go of expectation.
Yeah.
And fucking listen to this podcast.
Yeah. Do it. Well, actually, if you made it this far, you have already listened. So
cool. I don't need to tell you.
Anyways, thank you very much for being on the show. Is
Absolutely,
there
man.
anything you want to close out with?
Nah, I fucking love you, man.
Yeah, love you too, bro. Cool. If you like this episode of This Is Your Brain On podcast, consider leaving a rating or a review on your podcast listening app of choice. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, basically anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can find us. Help us break through those evil algorithms and reach the most amount of glorious listeners that we possibly can. And let us know how we're doing. For up-to-date information on the show, you can follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For more ways in which you can support the show, visit fsproductions.ca.